What is going on, everyone? So, thought I would go live today just because we've got the continuation of this ridiculous heritage comic auction. That, while I'll say the auction that was in January had a higher number of big books, meaning like $1 million plus books. I think there were maybe five or six books in that January heritage auction that broke that $1 million mark. But this one has that Action Comics one, obviously, that sold for $6 million. That is the only item that I'm aware of, I believe, that broke $1 million. So you have one really big book, and then you just have a ton of other multi-$100,000 items. So this has been a pretty fun auction to see the results of. There have definitely been some mixed results. There have been some strong sales. There have been some weak sales. We'll talk about some of those as well. But first, figure I'll just share the auction so that we've got this running in the background here, and you can see down on the right hand side that is the total sales so far for this auction, and it is over $23 million, which is a lot of money. so, so yeah, definitely a lot of money that has been spent so far in this auction. Uh, I wasn't going to talk too much about the action one because I know a lot of people have talked about that book, but I just wanted to make a comment on the sales price. Oh, and you can see I didn't win it. I put in my bid of $7,000. I think that was like the first day that it went live. I was just like, I just want to be able to have a bid on this thing. But some greedy people, they just had to outbid me, and I wasn't able to win this book, but went for $6 million. Me, I think that was a strong sale. So when I talked about this book, I was saying, on like the low end, if people really didn't like what was going on with how this was an 8.0 and it got bumped to an 8.5. And now that did happen a few years ago. It's not like that just happened, because I know a lot of the conspiracy theorists will be like, oh, it got bumped for this auction, whatever. No, it got bumped. I believe it got regraded like 3 years ago, something like that. And then it got put into a new case with this new label very recently. Now, I think it should have stayed NATO. I don't see it as an 8.5, but hey, whatever. But I thought that might hurt it. And I thought that the fact that there is another 8.5 that's out there, a white pages copy that is, stunning. Like puts this, this is like, it's Action Comics 185. Like it's a nice book, but that other one puts this book to shame. And that book sold for significantly less not too long ago. And so I thought maybe that might hold this one back. So I had it 3.5 to 5 million, upper end 5 million. And I know there are all these people that are like 8 to 10 million, 8 million, all this kind of stuff. And I did not see that happening. There's always people that will talk a big game before the auction starts, but then when it comes to the bidding, you're going to put up that money. And a lot of times, you don't see that. So I trust the numbers of what I see with prior sales a lot more than I trust what I hear, on the back end about what people might be bidding for something. And so to me, 6 million was a strong sale for this book. It's a new record, most expensive book, all that kind of thing. I didn't think that this was a weak sale. I thought this was a solid sale, since I was thinking like 5 million. And so, yeah, that's my thoughts on the Action Comics #1. But yeah, today, so if you're not aware, the way Heritage breaks up these big signature auctions is they actually did it different this time. Normally they have like this shorter session right at the beginning, where it lasts like an hour and a half, and it has their big original art and usually around 25 to 30 really big comics, like the really expensive comics. And then they take a break for like a half hour or an hour, and then they start into like the next session, which is like the still really big books, but not the level necessarily of that first session. They did it differently this time. They combined those two sessions together. So it was all just one massive session, but they took the original art out. They didn't do any original art, at least I don't think so, in that first session. And they put all of that on the next day. So you had all like kind of like the big comics generally on that first day. Second day, you had the original art. Now the third day, This is when you have still obviously very expensive books. Like there are books in here going for tens of thousands of dollars. Almost nothing is probably going to go below $1,000. But still very expensive books. This is usually where I hang out. We make some jokes in the uh, my chat with Swagglehouse and Como, where it's like if you're a session one bidder, or if you're a session three, like I'm session three. Like I'm generally session three. That's not what that's where my price point can live. Um, but let me know in the comments, like, anybody that's picked anything up in the last couple of days. Did you, if you've been participating in this auction, did you buy anything? Did you, um, were you at least looking on things? Did you bid on anything? What did you think about what's been going on so far with this auction? Because like I said, there have definitely been some weak sales, and there have been some strong sales, and a lot of just sales that kind of go around what you expect them to go for. If you watched my some little like shorts and things I've put out recently, like the Werewolf by Night 32 went like right where I thought it would. The Tomb of Dracula 1098 went right around where I thought it would. I mean, that's where, like, I had somebody's comment recently where they made a comment that like something about like you can't predict prices, and that's why like it doesn't make any sense that I'm surprised when things go above or below. And the reality is most of the books that I price go around the prices that I think they will. And that's why I pick the ones that I talk about. Like normally the ones I talk about are the ones that are those outliers. They're the ones to me that are the more interesting ones, the ones that either went really low, either that could mean, prices are dropping, or maybe somebody just got an awesome deal, or the ones that went exceptionally high. Those books that just surprise you with those sales. And there were definitely some exceptionally high sales that surprised me. I know one that a lot of people have been talking about. Well, I'll say this one. It was really cool to see this happen. This is a crazy sale. I mean, I know it's tough to price. It can be tough to price out original art, but I'm honestly, I'm getting a little better at it. I've been looking at more at original art and everything. And so this is a story page, page 9 from Tales of Suspense 39. So, original art went for 552,000. This is over $200,000 more than the next closest page from Tales of Suspense 39 sold for. And that was like last year. Went for, I think, like 330. And this one went for 552. One of the biggest sales of this entire auction. I mean, you can see here, it was the 6th biggest sale. Because I ordered them. Yeah, so 6th biggest sale, almost sold as much as this Detective Comics 27. Definitely the most expensive original art that sold in this auction. And yes, Greg Hunt, that is so much money for a page. But I mean, original art it's another beast. I mean, it really is. And there was a lot of pretty cool original art in this one. And I'll scroll through and I'll find a couple of them. I mean, there's this Frank Frazetta Vampirella one that went for, I think that was the number 2 original art. Yeah, 276,000. There was this, which was really cool. This was a letter from Jerry Siegel to Russell Keaton, which was describing Superman. This is from 1934. So 4 years before Superman was even put onto into the comic, and kind of describing this character. And so that was pretty cool to see. This one really surprised me. Like these Robert Crumb, who's like this, I don't know what you'd call it. I can't think of the word offhand, but basically like a more obscure type artist from the 70s generally. Had usually some pretty graphic art. That was it. Like basically, I got one of these books, the preview books for this auction, and it was just like almost every page was just full nudity, and it was all it was all this Robert Crumb stuff. And so like you got to be kind of careful a little bit with what you're showing with that kind of thing. But I mean, 240,000 for this Snarf number 6 cover original art. I mean, one of the biggest ones out there. And we had the Frank Miller, like this is a pretty cool one. This Elektra cover, but still like it's just like it's like a random cover. It's like Daredevil 190. I mean, I bet a 980 of that book is worth like, I don't know, $500 or something. I mean, maybe 800. I mean, let's take a look. So Daredevil 190. Let's just see like what a 9.8 of Daredevil 190 goes for. And then you compare that to that original art for that page. Yeah, so I mean, look, a 9.8, I was way off. 80 bucks. $80 for a 9.8 of Daredevil 190. But then when you're talking about the original art, $252,000. I mean, yeah, I mean, because it's like, I mean, it's Frank Miller. It's a Frank Miller original drawing. Like, I mean, but it's some of that stuff is super wild on pricing out original art. Um, and yeah, I'm generally the same way, but I've been very wary of original art for a while. But I have started dipping my toes into it. I've been watching like every auction that has original art. I scan through them, and I'm generally just looking for like images that catch my attention. And then I start digging into it a little more. One of the best places that you can do to help price that is heritage sold listings. Like that's where you can get an idea what a lot of original art sells for. It's almost what you have to use, because it's not like there's a Go Collect or a GPA or whatever for original art. And you just kind of have to look at historical sales for what this stuff goes for. But man, original art has exploded over the last couple years. It was always expensive, but last few years it's gotten pretty wild. Um, Pre-code thing says there was a Tomb of Dracula cover he was eyeing, but he knows so little about original art, it became uncomfortable pulling the trigger. Yeah, I mean, what you kind of have to do is, because I've been looking at various like pre-code horror art, and even some like, even though I tease Bronze Age horror, like if I could get a cool original art like cover, like that would be pretty cool. As long as it's not too expensive. But now it's like they're all going for like $30,000. Like it's like no matter what, it's like 30 grand, 30 grand. You know, I mean, and then you get other stuff that's 200, 300, 400,000, and you just it's a rich man's game. I think for a lot of that original art. But yeah. Um, let's see. Uh, the permanent or that permanent letter was the coolest thing in the auction to me. If money wasn't a consideration, I'd rather have that than the action one. I mean, I'd rather have the action one, but I agree. It is a very cool item. I don't know if 264,000 is low or high. I mean, that's one of those that it's really tough to tell. It was like it just kind of like most things I feel like you can kind of price out with comparables. That's just like it sells for what it sells for. It's what somebody wants to pay for it. Maybe I don't know if they'll frame it or what they'll do with it. But there was this Amazing Fantasy 15. I think that one went maybe on the lower side. Let's take a look. There have been again. Amazing Fantasy 15 has been weird. There have been a bunch of them popping up for sale again. So let's see, 7.5. It's already pulled into GPA here. Actually, I would say not low. I would say that's right in line. I mean, you look at kind of like this, like Amazing Fantasy 15 is one of those books that you can really follow its trend for the last 2 decades. I mean, it has little like spikes and things, but it's pretty consistent on what it does. And if you just kind of like draw a line with your eye here, kind of just going up, I mean, I would say that's right about where it should be. I mean, like 160 to 170,000, somewhere in that range feels right where a 7.5 should be. It's just that these books got so wild during the comic boom. I mean, look at that, 300,000, and this one isn't even that bad. There are others that got way, way more out of hand than that. I think maybe a 6.5 might have even, yeah, I mean, like the 6.5 up to 225. But then if you look at that general kind of trend, it's like it's back where it should be. So I mean, I feel like that 7.5 went where 7.5 should go. Let's see. Oh, Superman, not permanent. Okay, all right. Yeah, I gotcha. Uh, People were saying they printed out copies of Siegel. Yeah, I did see that. I saw those comments. I thought that was pretty funny. I mean, that would be true technically with like any like reprint, of any comic or anything like that. I mean, it's not the original, but yeah, I thought it was pretty funny. I saw that. Um, Here and there, I see TMNT original art that's not so outlandishly high, but there are usually just sketches by Kevin Eastman. Yeah, so I was actually talking about with someone yesterday, and because I was talking about it was actually a short that I put out yesterday was about the let's see, let me find it. It was the original sketch of Shredder. Went for 60,000, so we should be able to find this in here. We'll take a little bit for all this stuff to load, but yeah, went for 60,000. And I thought it was a pretty, yeah, and you can see this is where you've got all these things where they're blocked out for adult verification because they are some pretty explicit covers. But let's find that because that was really, yeah, right here. This one, it's really cool. So this is the first original concept of Shredder, and then you had some other preliminary art, like some ideas on the back of it. Went for 60,000. And the one comment I had, like, so we were talking, and he said he thought it went low. I was like, I don't really know, but it feels like a lot to me, especially because talking to my buddy Drew, apparently Kevin Eastman. Now I don't know about Peter Laird, but Kevin Eastman kept everything, like everything. And so he has just tons and tons of, I'm guessing, like uncirculated books as well as just all the art. It seems like he probably has like all the art. And so you'll see, I've noticed in the last few heritage auctions, it feels like they're like slow rolling that original art out. And so they've been putting out one page at a time, for example, of Raphael #1, the that first appearance of Casey Jones and that kind of thing. And so instead of just dumping it all at once, they're putting out like little bits at a time, but there is a lot of it. And so that's one of those things I feel like you just have to be aware of. And I'm glad Drew let me know that, just because you got to think about that. If you're going to be putting big money into this, there could be just an endless supply of original art for the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles that's going to eventually keep coming out. And so just something to be aware of there with that. But I thought this was really cool. I mean, it feels pretty finalized. I mean, that is a pretty accurate depiction of what we know Shredder looks like right now. But this is one thing that there's a lot of in this auction too, which I thought was cool. And I was gonna try going after some, but I don't know. I feel I've spent way too much money lately. But a lot of these Gaines file copies, I really like the idea of the game. Like, I like pedigrees, and I like Gaines file copies. I did pick one up recently for a different issue. But I just, because I like the gold labels, I like I like that you can get those with that and everything. So I don't know, if you like Gaines file copies, there are quite a few in this auction. You definitely have some opportunities to pick some up. Now, one of the books I just wanted to show, someone messaged me right before I went live, so I figured I'd talk about it a little bit, was this one right here. So I had made a short also recently about Detective Comics 31, how my favorite book that was in this auction was the 2.5 of Detective Comics 31. It was a universal. It sold much earlier in the auction. We can actually go find that. And I think it went for a good price. And after seeing like what this one went for, this restored 1.8, I mean, I think the person made a great purchase on that book. I was estimating that it was going to go over 100, and it went for 90. So here's that book right here. It's nice that these are already pulled in, so I don't have to go search around through GPA for them. But it went for, or search around through Heritage for them. So here's that book. I mean, it's a 2.5. This is the one that I made a kind of a joke post on Instagram where I put a 9.9 up here, and that was like my new pickup. But yeah, I mean, this is a really solid looking 2.5. I mean, doesn't have nearly like, this tape pull in the middle here is kind of a detractor, but this is a book where it's like, you kind of like, you'll take what you can get with it. But a 2.5 is a solid grade for this book. This book almost never comes up for sale, especially in Universal. I mean, you can see that here. There was a 2.0 that sold in 2022 and a 1.5, and then this 2.5. And then like in the higher grades, there was a 5.0 that went 4 years ago, a 6.0 that went 7 years ago. I mean, it just does not come up for sale. And I feel like at 90,000, I think that this 2.5 was a good pickup. And especially when you start looking at what this went for. I mean, a 1.8 restored, and the restoration, let's see, color touch, pieces added, glue, and tear seals, an extensive C5. So in theory, all these things could be undone, but a C5 is amateur, meaning that it generally is going to damage the book if it's removed, and it's a ton of it. A 5 is a lot. And so there's probably either a lot of color touch or some pretty substantial pieces added back to the book. And so if you removed it, yeah, maybe you get like this down here looks like this was maybe some recreation that was taped back in, or I don't know. It's hard to say for sure. It's just the color doesn't really match. So maybe that's a big chunk that was added back in or something. And so if you tried to get it back to a universal, it might be a point 0.5, and so that's where it's like, even though those could be undone, I doubt you would want to undo what was done to this book. But yeah, I mean, 38,000 for a 1/8 restored copy and then 90,000 for a universal. I think that this was a solid pickup for what I think is just the coolest Batman cover that is out there. Um, let's see. So we got a comment here. Hey Ryan, I'm only 8 months into comic collecting and I'm enjoying the hobby and watching and learning from different YouTubers like you. I appreciate the help and learning. I collect for the art and money. Oh, hey, appreciate it. Thanks for watching the channel. Yeah, I mean, like for me, like I've talked about before, it's like this is also business for me. I'm also a comic dealer, and so I'm also in it. Like there's a financial side of it for me as well. And I am I'm a big cover collector. Like for me, it really has to be a visually appealing book. And if it's not, it's generally not going to be a book that I want to, keep. I call it like my keeper list or whatever. Even though somebody was joking recently that I need to change that name because I don't feel it doesn't seem like I keep them very long. And it's true. They do cycle out fairly often, and it's because every time I get a new book in, it's competing with my other books on that keeper list. I only keep a limited amount of books, and so if I get something in that I really like, then it moves it out. Or if somebody offers me, something that like usually it's a I don't want to sell it price if it's on my keeper list, and if somebody offers me that I don't want to sell it price, I sell it. And then that gives me the ability to buy more stuff. And so, I mean, that's all part of the fun. I mean, I like getting in new books I haven't had before, just like cool stuff like that. And so, I mean, I've had people ask, like, they wonder, like, oh, how do you buy this or how do you afford that or whatever? And it's because I sell stuff. I sell other books and then I buy new things. And I just, that's how you learn which books you really, really like. And so, like, for example, I picked up a Blue Bolt 105 recently. I had a 4.5. I got a solid offer for that, and I ended up selling it. And then recently, I picked up a 6.5. It's like it's one of my favorite LB Cole covers, and I was able to get it back, and it's a pretty rare book. And so that's one of those things. It's like even if a book is rare, you will have opportunities come up again. Even something like this, like a Detective Comics 31. This is a rare book. This does not come up for sale often, but in the last 2 years, there have been 3 opportunities to buy a universal copy. And if you're okay with restored, there have been more opportunities. I've bid on a restored copy of this book before. I mean, it's just it certain books, like I'm much more okay with restored books than others. And that, it's like you will have opportunities. There are some that are extremely rare that it might be years and years between them. And so you do have to put that into consideration when you're bidding on something. But most books, even pretty rare books, you'll have a few opportunities per year. um what do I think of Tech 29 is where it ranks with Tech 31 and 27. I actually I like the cover of 29 more than 27. I'm actually not a huge fan of the cover of Detective Comics 27. And I don't know if that's heresy or what. That's why, like, when people ask, like, would you rather have an Action Comics 1 or a Detective Comics 27? I would rather have an Action 1. I love the cover for Action Comics number 1. And while I'm not saying I don't like the cover for, I mean, hey, let's go look at it because there were both of them sold in this auction. And so, kind of my comment on for like for the people that are like, oh, only call something a grail if it's like rare and tough to get. It's like, well, like there've been a couple action comic ones just in this auction. We had a Tech 27 sell like 2 weeks ago on Comic Connect, and another one here. Does that mean they're not grails? It's like, yeah, come on, let people buy what they like. But so, I mean, if I'm comparing this cover, Action Comics 1, to this one, I like Action 1 more. There's something about the way Batman's legs look in this one, the way they're kind of like folded back, that I don't really like the look of Detective Comics 27. But 29, that's the one where I think he's like busting through the window, right? I know one sold, so let's see if I can find it. And I think it was a decent enough copy that it would be fairly high up here. I think it was a 3.5 and it went for like 50,000. Yeah, right here. So yeah, oh no, 66,000. Yeah, so 66,000 for 29. Yeah, I mean that one I had thrown in a pre-auction bid on that one. I figured I'd take a swing at it. But I did not win. So but yeah, I mean I think that's an awesome. I love this cover. I think it's a better cover than Detective Comics 27. 31 is my favorite though. 31 is my favorite of those three. I did get an early tech recently. It should be here soon. So I'm pretty excited about that. Pretty early, and it's a Batman cover. It's not 31. But yeah, I did pick one up recently. Um, do I price restored and conserved books similarly? Yes, because a conserved book is just a restored book with very specific types of restoration. So that it's just that you get the label that makes it not look as bad. So it does often help conserved books a little bit because they don't have that like purple label, which some people just visually don't like. But I do price them fairly similarly. But yes. Let's see. I only judge comics based on their cover. Turns out I picked up books that were worth money because of this. It's the art number one. I mean, it definitely depends. It depends on the era. If you're talking golden age, cover is a huge deal because the keys, like the first appearances and that kind of thing, are so expensive. I mean, the perfect examples are Action Comics. I mean, like Action Comics 1 and Detective Comics 27. I mean, the first appearances are outside the price point for at least for the characters that are still around today for a lot of people. But you can get some really cool covers in that era. And that's why I feel like covers for the golden age are way more important than in other eras. It gets less and less important as you move on. And then the appearance becomes much more important than the actual cover. Um, what do I think of the final price for the Punch Comics? The 5.5 went almost exactly what I thought it would. Let's use GPA because they should both be. There were two that sold. Punch number 12. So there was a 5.5 and a 4.5. I think the 4.5 was someone got a good buy, and it's because, and I'll talk about this for a second, but yeah, so the 5.5, I think I had it going for like 55. I think maybe I said 55 or 60. I was talking to someone about it. I don't remember exactly. I think some people might think that it was low because of this $90,000 sale, but the $90,000 sale was the Nicolas Cage copy. I mean, 100%. The fact that this was part of Nicolas Cage's collection is why that book sold for so much. I mean, it's just like there are Steve Ditko books that sell for way more than what you would think like the Amazing Spider-Man book should sell for. Like if you see in the early Amazing Spider-Man issues, like a book that sold that was a huge outlier, it's usually one of the ones from the Steve Ditko collection. And that doesn't mean that that's what the book is worth. That's what that copy is worth. And the same thing here, like with this 5.5, I think that this is like, or that the 5.5 that sold this week, I think 55 to 60 is around where what this book is worth. And then the 90 is just the outlier for the fact that it's a Nicolas Cage copy. That's my take on that one. Now, the other one, the 4.5 that went for 33.6, I think it should have sold for more, but I know why it didn't. And it's because this is heritage and this was a slightly brittle page copy. And I tell people that all the time. If you are selling a brittle page or slightly brittle page copy, you should probably not sell it on heritage. And heritage, like the buyers that are on heritage, because this book is stunning. I mean, this book looks better than the 6.5. I'm not even joking. like this book is a stunning copy, and you can tell it probably has a little fragility at the staple. You can see that like little bit of brittleness at the staple, but I mean, look at this thing. Look at these, like the corners and edges and how like just how clean this book is. This is a stunning copy of this book. And because that's slightly brittle, like heritage buyers, like they just don't like to bid on it. And so, I mean, if I had had the cash at this point to go for it, I probably would have. Um, and it's just actually, no, not probably. I would have. It's just that's the way I've seen that. I mean, I watch probably. I mean, other than someone who works at Heritage, I probably watch more Heritage auctions than almost anybody because I watch all of them. I watch all and I sit there and watch most of them. And so like I know how slightly brittle and brittle pages perform on Heritage, and on average they perform poorly. And so that's just I just wouldn't sell them there. This was also a really strong sale. This Phantom Lady 17, 3.5 pink pages for 28,800. I mean, this book, it keeps going stronger and stronger. There was a 5.5, I think was it a 5.5 on Comic Connect that sold for it was like 60,000 or 58,000 a couple weeks ago. And it hasn't been pulled in yet here, but that's going to be a big jump for that one. This is this 3.5. I mean, here's that sale right here. But you can see like 3 years ago, 11,400. I mean, that's why I picked up my copy. Like this book is it just keeps going. I mean, it is one of the most desirable books of the golden age. And, it's a Matt Baker cover. Matt Baker stuff is just crazy now. And it just seems like this one, I mean, I'm sure you'll have like little ups and downs, but it has just generally been constantly trending up. All right. Let's see what's selling right now in this auction. Is there anything I've been watching? Oh yeah, this is a pretty cool cover. If you're not it's just one of these like crazy covers. Manhunt number 14. This tiny guy with the the syringe. I don't know what's going on this cover. I have no idea. He's the little man who wasn't there, I guess. But yeah, crazy book. And a 5.0 is a very tough grade for that book. You do not see. I mean, I had a copy and it was like a 1.8. You generally don't see like mid grade copies of this book. Let's see. Let me check back with the comments here. It says, curious, did you make your money from comics or work and then comics? You don't have it to answer 66,000 for a book. I couldn't imagine dropping that for one book right now. I comics is like a side thing for me. But yeah. I mean, I have, it's like a side gig, whatever you want to call it. But I mean, for me, like comics, I mean, I've been buying and selling comics now for about 5 years, and it's just something that I've been actively doing, and it's built up over time. Part of the thing that's probably helped me is that it's because it is a side thing. I don't need the money from it. Any money I make, I just buy more comics. I mean, I pay my taxes. I do all that kind of stuff. So like, I know people like when we talk about the business side of things with comics and everything, I know that a lot of people, it seems like they kind of dodge that type of stuff. But no, I do everything by the book. Otherwise, it would be kind of stupid to make YouTube videos about it, because then you'd kind of be like advertising your crimes. But yeah, no, so that's what's really kind of, I guess, like I'll air quote, helped me with comics, is that because we haven't needed the money for it, I just buy more comics, and I've just gotten pretty good at it, I guess. Let's see. That Punch 1245 should resubmit for a 9.9 pre-screen. Maybe it might have a shot. It's it is a. I mean, it's a good looking book. I don't think it can get better than a 4.5, because it looks like it's probably detached at that top staple. I mean, you can usually get around as high as a 6 with a detached staple. You can get as high as a 6.5 with a slightly brittle book. That's the max, but I mean, maybe it would have a shot, but just I would be worried about handling. Like once you've got a book that if it looks like, because it depends where that brittleness is on the book. Sometimes it's like in the pages in a corner somewhere. If it's along the spine, you're taking some risks having somebody crack that book out and then handling it, and you probably don't want to press it. Maybe you split something more, you detach the other staple, and then you lose. In that a book like that, you could lose thousands of dollars with a mistake. So definitely some risk there. Let's see. I thought this one was pretty cool. Just these are, you can see the ones that are highlighted in yellow are the ones that I was watching for this auction, just that were interesting to me. And it's just a really early Mickey Mouse Magazine #2, like a book that you don't see come up hardly ever. I don't know if I've ever seen this book sell in an auction before, and a 7.0 white pages. But let's go back to talk about some of these other books that sold, just kind of like for my take on some of these sales prices. So this 9.8 Tales of Suspense 39. This one, I mean, I try not to be a jerk about it, but like I was kind of hoping it would go low, and I feel like it did. And it's because this everything felt weird to me about this book, because a 9.8 had never sold publicly before. I don't think it had ever sold publicly before. Um, so we had a Tales of Suspense 39. Let me check if it had sold publicly prior to this one. So yeah, it had never sold. You had never had a public sale before. I think it's the single highest graded. And I talked about this in a prior video where all of a sudden this book popped up on a comic link. Let's see here, as a sold listing. It's right here. Like all of a sudden this popped up, and it wasn't in an auction or anything in September. And it just showed up like as it, like a week before or right around this heritage auction when it showed up there. Then it was like, I was like, this feels like somebody bought this maybe privately, and then they got nervous that they paid too much, and then they wanted to sell it. And then they're like, you know, they maybe they paid 2 million, and they're like, make sure people know I paid 2 million. It's everything felt weird about it. Like, why would you buy a Tales of Suspense 39, like the single highest graded in September, for 2 million, which to me was like, if you know how to price comics, like that price seemed insane to me. I mean, and I talked about that in another video. Like, I think I said, I thought like it might go for 1 million. And because it's a single highest, like maybe like outside shot, it goes for 1.5. And, so I saw this, and I'm like, no, like, why would you pay two, unless you have like endless money to lose? Why would you pay 2 million for that book and then immediately sell it like 6 months later? I don't know. It felt weird to me. And so I'm kind of glad it went low because everything felt weird about this book. I didn't like it. And so, I'm not surprised. Like 840,000 isn't a surprise to me. I mean, the book that I was using as a comparison to price this one out was Amazing Spider-Man 1. Amazing Spider-Man 1 always sells for more than Tales of Suspense 39 by a decent amount. And we had that Amazing Spider-Man 1 9.8. We just had a reference point where the 9.8, whether you think it was a 9.8 or not, like people buy the grade. So 9.8 went for like 1.3 million. And so I was just like, there's no way this book goes for 2. And it definitely, like, I mean, there are 2 9.8s of ASM1. So that's why I was like, maybe some outside shot that helps it. But that's why I figured like around 1, and it went for 840. And I don't know if other people felt this, same as me. Everything just felt weird about that book. But then we had the Cap 1. Cap 1 is an interesting book. It never seems to do as good as you think it's going to do. And so I really like Captain America #1, but for some reason this book just always seems to underperform on my expectations. And maybe it's because maybe there's a little bit of like my own, like what I think it should do in that. But like this 9.2 sold for 810 in 2023. I mean, it's up a lot from 2013, but I mean, down 60 from 2023. I mean, we had the 7.0 that it had that high sale in 2022 and down a little bit. It's just a lot of the other big books, they seem to kind of like always just ratchet up. And this one doesn't. It often seems to go lower. Now the 3.0 did pretty well. There was a 3.0 in this auction. That one actually did pretty well. That was a little bit more of a surprise sale to me, especially since it had seemed like this book was trending back down maybe a little some. And so the 3.0 was a strong sale. That was a strong sale for that book. But yeah, Captain America number 1, it always surprises me. I always feel like it should go for more. The Tech 27, I had this one going between 600 and 800. Again, this was a slightly brittle, like even a Tech 27, I feel like it's a risky place to sell it, like with a slightly brittle book. and it went for the low end of my range. Um, I, I mean, I feel like someone's, I don't know, but I went for the low end of my range. It's a good looking book. I mean, it really is. Like, it's a good looking 3.0, but again, slightly brittle. I think it says it has like a minor amount of glue. I think that's one of the notes on here. So people always ask about that. How can it get a blue label? There are two things that you can see on a blue label that might confuse you. One of them is minor amount of glue. Generally, the rule is, from what I understand, is that the glue can't be doing anything. So somebody maybe put glue on there at some point to like repair something or to try to like reattach the cover or whatever. And if it's not, if over time, like say that glue is like 40 years old or 50 years old, and it's not doing anything anymore, it's just dried out, they will still give you a blue label. The other one you can see is minor amount of color touch. That one, I don't know what the threshold is. I don't know if it's like a single pinpoint or what it is, but you can see minor amount of color, or it's like very minor amount of color touch, and you can still get a blue label. Those things can sometimes hurt the value because sometimes people just are hesitant to bid on them. Like maybe they worry if they send it back in the next time, it'll get a purple label or something. But that is very common, especially in the golden age. I think I've only ever seen it once in the silver age. I saw it with an X-Men 1 that somebody posted on Instagram like 2 years ago. But generally, I only see that in the golden age. I didn't really price this Action 1, this one here, the restored, but from what I've heard from a lot of people, they think this did really well. So at least, and this is like, so this is the thing. So you see how bright this copy is versus this one? This is what the other 8.5 looks like. that's the difference. Like that other 8.5 looks like this. And I believe it's a white pages copy. I mean, that other 8.5 is just it is a stunning, stunning book. The Avengers 1 did really good. This one surprised me a lot. So because like this book has just been trending down. 9.6 is top of census, but there's like 7 of them. Let's check. 5. There's 5 9.6s, but let's go look at that one. Like this book, like Avengers 1, even in the 9.6 has generally been trending down. It's come up for sale a couple times. Or I don't know about the 9.6, but the high grades have come up for sale. And so we look at this 9.6. I mean, this was a record from 2021. I mean, Comic Boom, and in September 2021, that's like peak Comic Boom. And this went for $63,000 more. I mean, like probably what's that? Like maybe like 18% more, somewhere in that range, 17, 18%. I mean, that was a big sale. That was a strong sale for that book. I mean, strong sale for Silver Age. I mean, especially when a lot of what we've been seeing is like Silver Age, Bronze Age keeps, has been trending down. And I had commented that in the Comic Connect auction, the stuff that looked really good, that was really strong, was silver and bronze. And this was a big sale too. It really was. Yeah, this one too. I wasn't expecting this book to break 400. This wasn't like a super strong sale. This Sensation 1 9.6, but it beat my expectations. I think I thought this one might go for like 375. Went for 420. This is, I think, the single highest graded. Yeah, 1 in 9.6, none higher. And you might think it would go for more. I mean, it kind of feels like it should, but I thought it would go for 375, went for 420. So I think that was a solid sale for that one. Let me check back into the comments here. No, that is not my side gig. But the B2B, I sell tech B2B. I don't know what that means. If you want to restate what you mean there, Raleigh. The 8.5 pages owner was trying a private sale for 10 million. Yeah. So I had heard that, and that's why I think everybody was like, oh, it's going to go for 10 million. Because everybody's like, I tell people that, oh, I guess I collected the wrong one. Yeah. This one here, this 8.5 white pages owner was trying to private sale for 10 million. Yes. And so, I mean, that's just like that. I mean, hey, that's like that Tales of Suspense 39. If somebody paid 2 million for that in a private sale, I mean, and effectively like a Comic Connect direct sale, it sounds like maybe they facilitated or something similar to that Superman 1 that went for 5.3. That was a private sale, even though I think it was facilitated by Comic Connect / Metropolis. I mean, I feel like people overpay a lot in those private sales. Like sometimes maybe they get a deal, but on these big books, I feel like people are just like, they're often paying a little, maybe they need to maybe they don't care about the money. I mean, I've talked about that with some people too. Like if you if you kind of look at like the way to look at it is look at how much money you have or how much money you make. And you go like, what number am I comfortable spending? Like without thinking too much about it. And then look at the fact that some of the people bidding on these books have 100, 1,000, 10,000 times more than you. You know, so if you're comfortable spending $100, you know, without being too worried about it. If somebody has 1,000 times more than you, them spending 100,000 is like you spending 100. If they have 10,000 times more than you, them spending 1,000,000 is like you spending 100. So it's like sometimes you got to think about that. It's like it can be tough to like put yourself in the perspective, like in the situation of somebody having that much money, but sometimes that's how you have to look at it. And so it's like, yeah, maybe this person just lost 1.6 million plus the fees, like, or not 1.6, 1.2 plus the fees. So maybe they lost like 1.3 million. But maybe to them, they, you know, not that big a deal. Maybe it is. Maybe they're just like hurting and that sucks for them. That's possible. But that's how you often have to, in my opinion, think of those things. Um, let's see. Uh, oh, you're asking what I do for business. I don't talk about my personal business stuff. Just comics. I'm gonna talk about comics here. Um, James Harden is a big comic collector. Money means nothing. Yeah, I mean that's the thing. Like money can mean nothing to plenty of people out there. It's more about getting the item and not wanting to wait. Like for some people, the time is much more valuable than the money. And so they go, you know, it's like, yeah, maybe I'd save 50 grand if I waited 6 months or a year for one to come up at auction, but I just want to buy it now, you know, and that's definitely the way that some people can potentially approach these things. Um, and yes, 10,000, yeah, 10,000 times. But I mean, there are people with $100 billion, you know, and so someone having 10,000 times more than someone is not an impossible thing. I mean, those are definitely real possibilities out there in the world. Um, but yeah, let's check back see what's selling. Oh, we got some Phantom Ladies coming up right now. Let's see if any have sold yet. Okay, so they've sold a couple have sold. We had a 7.5 14. I'm not a huge fan of this cover. It is a Baker, but this is of the Phantom Lady covers. This one is not my favorite. But 7.5 went for 4,500. I like this one. I think this is a cool one. 8.0 or 8.5 went for 7,800. Let's see. I think there was also an 8.5, an 8.0 or an 8.5 that sold on Comic Connect. But again, those haven't been pulled in yet. Oh, and then we've got another Baker. Pictorial Romance is 6. These books, Baker Romance, man, it's crazy what Baker Romance is doing right now. There was one that sold earlier today for a really big number. I can't remember the issue. But yeah, Baker Romance, just crazy what that. So that's an example of, you know, I was saying like brittle and slightly brittle seem to do worse on Heritage. Baker Romance does killer on Heritage. Like that seems like this is the place. If you are selling Baker Romance, this is where the Baker Romance collectors watch. You know, they are watching this site for those books. Um, let's see. Cosmic Trekker says, I'm retired and finally broke down and spent more than $1,000 on a book a few weeks ago. I thought I lost my mind back around 2012 or so when I spent 190 on a Marvel Premiere one. Yeah, I mean, you got to be careful though, because as you start breaking those thresholds, it seems to get easier and easier. Um, I I broke that $1,000 threshold early. When I started watching Heritage, I bought a Wonder Woman 1 back in like 2019. I think it was like 4,000 or something like that. And but it was years before I broke the $10,000 threshold. I don't think I broke that until last year. So it was like 4 years before I stepped up to that one. Now I've broken that threshold a bunch of times. So you just got to be careful there. Like, you know, you just like you get you feel like you get too comfortable with some of these numbers sometimes, and you don't like and then when you actually think about it, you're like, oh, that's a car. And then it gets a little weird. So sometimes it's good to like separate yourself away from how much money we're actually spending on some of these books. Um, and Hey, Desired Comics, thanks for joining the chat. Then we've got Alan says, do you feel this auction represents the current market? Do you feel overall market has stabilized or more room to fall, or if you got some Grail is still going up? I do not think that the signature auctions represent the standard market. The signature auctions are, I mean, it's generally for people that have more money, that probably aren't affected as much by fluctuations in the economy and all that kind of thing. I think that it represents that market. I mean, there are different, there's like the high end market, there's the mid tier market, there's the lower end market. And I mean, from what I can tell, the high end market generally seems to still be doing pretty good. Um, like I said, there were definitely some low sales that were in this auction too. I think that the last couple auctions. Now, I'll be curious to see if this continues throughout the year, or if we're really front loaded on some serious auctions, because we had that January Heritage auction that was I made videos. I'm like, this is the craziest auction I've ever seen in my life. And now granted, that one I talked about this earlier in the video. That one still had more bigger books. So it had multiple books that broke that $1 million mark. Whereas this one only had one book that broke that $1 million mark, but it still had a lot of like top of census, really, really impressive books. And so this auction, it's hard to say if this one is more impressive than the January or not. It has some amazing stuff, but some really impressive auctions with Heritage. And then Comic Connect, that one, I talked about that in another video. I feel like that one went a little bit under the radar. That auction was insane. That auction had so much like mid to upper tier, like great books. And I feel, I made a post about it on Instagram. Like, I didn't even get the advertisement for it. I mean, I knew about it because I had been watching stuff on it. I might try to keep up on all this kind of stuff. But like, if you hadn't been and you were waiting for the advertisement for the auction, like the booklet that they send out where it's like, hey, we've got this auction coming up. Here's some of the cool stuff that's in it. Mine showed up on the Saturday after the auction ended. And I posted about it on Instagram, and a bunch of people said the same thing. Their books, their advertisements showed up after the auction ended, or like the last day of a 6-day auction. And so that one, I feel like, it may have underperformed, but it may have underperformed because of lack of publicity on it. And that could have hurt it. I also felt like that one was a little too overloaded. It had way too much, in my opinion, like pre-code horror. I mean, I love pre-code horror, but everything has a saturation level. And that one had two big collections full of pre-code horror in it. It had the Bobby Blue collection. It had almost all of the EC books from that Bobby Blue collection. And then it had, among others, and then it also had this thing called like the PA Cole, I think, collection. And that was like all these PCH books, among others too. And so you doubled up on a lot of like high grade, big EC books. And I think it just overwhelmed the demand for it. But for me, it was a good opportunity. I bought a lot of stuff. So that's what I look for when I, when I see something like that. Let's see. Any Darkhawk one in this auction? No, not that I am aware of. Mickey is still safe, I believe, with having the best copy out there, the double cover 9.8. I am not aware of any 9.9 Darkhawk one. If there was a 9.9, it would probably be in this auction, though. If there was a 9.9 Darkhawk one, I bet it would be here. The Superman auction going to mainstream news may spike sales widespread. Well, I mean, Mickey made a video about that, I think, yesterday. Basically, that's part of the goal, with a lot of these like platforms is why they want to have big books like that, and why on average it's good for the hobby in general to have some of these big books come up for sale and not just sit in people's collections forever, because they bring attention. I mean, it's like, how many articles were there about Action Comics 1 selling for 6 million, the new record, like all over the place. And I mean, oh, and here's a cool one. Power Comics. I love this cover. This is an LB Cole. I think this is like the coolest. There are a number of Eagle covers from the Golden Age. This is probably my favorite. It's like it's just because it's almost like a little bit of a horror type cover. This eagle's attacking these guys. Um, and it feels like that's going for a good price. 1800. Let's take a look. Let's take a look. That feels like a good price. Power number 4. Power Comics number 4, because Power Comics has a few pretty cool covers in it. Power 3 is the most popular one. So that was a 7.5, and it went for 1800. So we had a 6.0 in December go for 1260. I mean, there was this 9.0 that went for 9,000. But when you're up, that was probably, uh I'm guessing there's like two. Um so yeah, or yeah, just one higher. So there's one higher, so it's like second highest graded. So I mean, take that for what it is. That's always when you're at top of census, that's always a little oh, that's weird. Did this one get I wonder what happened. Yeah, that's weird. I wonder if something got damaged. Somebody tried to like press it up. Huh, interesting. So if you're wondering what I'm talking about here, you can see like there's a 192, 190, two 8.0s. And in the sales history, there's a 9.2 Edgar Church. But then there's also 6 years later an 8.0 Edgar Church. And I'm assuming I don't think he was really known for having multiples. So let's see if this other one, let's see here. Let's see if it's the same book. See if we can tell. See if there's like some giveaway on this copy. So this upper corner has like a little thing there. Does this one have it? Does. Yeah, I wonder if something happened. Like if some damage happened when somebody pressed it, or if they just decided this wasn't a 9.2. I mean, like maybe they're just like, this should not have been a 9.2. I mean, I don't see anything there. Maybe that's on the inside of the case or a scratch on the case. It's hard to tell. Yeah, I don't know. That's weird. Yeah, I don't know. Just something weird. Just a little like unique thing there. Um, but yes, I do think that like big sales like that, I mean, they always bring attention. I remember when that Superman 1 sold for 5.3, it got lots of people creating articles for it. And when that the Amazing Fantasy 15 sold for what was it, 3.6 or whatever it was, that got all kinds of attention. I mean, that stuff just it brings the non-comic community into the comic world. Um uh Cosmic Tricker says, "I love that Comic Connect auction. Lots of good mid-grade value." And I agree. Yeah, I felt like that too. I I do think there was too much in that auction. I mean, it was like 6 straight days of, because I think it was like Sunday through Friday, of near 600 items a night. And it was starting at like 7 p.m. and went until like almost 1 a.m. on most days. Almost every day went after midnight. It was just too long. It was just too much stuff. And so I think it was just, I don't know. I feel like that one just had way too much in it, and which led to some good prices. Um, so I noticed that with these auctions, can be money around spring, but can be a place to get good deals at the end of the year. So I generally see that spring, I often see spring as a very good time for prices, like they do well. Summer tends to be more of a lull. I've heard people say it's because there's more cons and people aren't, maybe watching the auctions and they're traveling, so they aren't sitting on their computer at home watching these books come up for sale. Um, I've generally noticed like September or October seems to be pretty good prices. I know some people have seen the opposite, but I've generally seen some pretty strong sales around that time of year. I notice the weakest times tend to be summer and like right around Christmas, especially on eBay. Like eBay auctions around Christmas that is where you want to go look for deals. That is probably the best time of year to find, just all the deals. Um, I was disappointed to find out that I paid more on eBay than Heritage on a Neil Adams key. Yeah, I mean, it happens, like, I mean, I've said that before, like Heritage is, I mean, is very good at advertising their strong sales. I mean, that's what they do. They're a business. They want people to they only want to talk about the sales that go well. And so like I think everybody thinks everything goes high, and like there are all every auction platform has big records and great deals. Now, and most of the stuff sells within like 10% of what the market value is. But you have these out. That's why, like when I price books out, I have like a big spreadsheet that I do for the auctions usually, and I have little things that I have marked to mark books that I think will be interesting to talk about. And it's books that sold for generally 20% or more above my estimate or 20% or more below my estimate. Everything else is just generally I'm not talking about it much because it generally went around what it sold for or what I would expect it to. And so it's those big outliers that are interesting to talk about. And certain times a year, you maybe have a little more on the high end versus the low end and that kind of thing. But all auctions have it. All auctions have deals. All auctions have big sales. And so your job as the buyer is to try to maybe find those deals. The auction house's job as the seller is to advertise their big wins. And you gotta remember that. So you can find deals anywhere. Um, do buyers pay more for a pedigree or it doesn't really matter? Buyers definitely pay more for a pedigree. I pay more for a pedigree. So, and it does depend on the pedigree. The Mile High pedigree is one of the most famous pedigrees, so it often gets a pretty significant premium, even though there are tons of books in it. It's like 15,000 books. But the Mile High, here, let me just so you guys are something interesting to look at over here. But that Mile High pedigree uh, often goes for a pretty big premium. I would say all pedigrees generally go for a premium. Promise Collection has been generally going for 25 to 50% premium. The biggest premium that you will get from anything is the Okajima pedigree. The Okajima pedigree often sells for anywhere from like 6 to 10 times what the non-pedigree copy would sell for. And what it all comes down to is it's the pedigree, it's adding a story behind the book. It's connecting some specific person or piece of history to that book. And so that's what it's adding. And that's really what you're paying for. And so like with Okajima, you should go check out Karen's Pages. She has a YouTube channel and she did a great like in-depth look into the Okajima pedigree and found that it looks like it was actually a different woman and her brother that were in one of the Japanese internment camps that was collecting comics than what was originally thought. It is a great video that she did. Highly recommended. It's her page's name is Karen's Pages. That's her YouTube channel. And so if you're interested in pedigrees or the Okajima pedigree, definitely go check that one out. It was really, really well done. And you can tell she spent a ton of time researching it and did a lot of work on that. So it was really impressive. But yeah, the Okajima pedigree by far the most, but they all, the ones that are more well-known tend to sell for bigger premiums. Like the Davis Crippen one tends to be a pretty big premium. The Gaines file copies tend to do pretty well, even though there's a lot of them. People like having those Gaines file copies. I really like the Cosmic Aeroplane pedigree because I think it's like the coolest name of a pedigree that's out there. Promise Collection has a cool story behind it. San Francisco pedigree has a cool story behind it. I mean, it's not cool meaning fun. It's like a sad story. It's like son goes to war and doesn't come back, but it's like it's not just like this person was a hoarder. Like the Mile High collection is kind of like this person was a hoarder. It's like a lot of these collections were, you call them like, I mean, they kept them in good condition, but they're basically hoarder collections. but some of the other ones have these very interesting stories behind them, and those tend to sell for more. Let's see. We got one. How much softer on grading do you think CGC grades a 9.0 Golden Age versus 9.0 Modern? I mean, they definitely don't grade them the same, and I know that really bothers some people. It does not bother me at all. I'm totally fine with that. I don't care. But they definitely do grade vintage books a little bit different than the newer they get. I mean, like it's the machinery that existed and all of that. Like your cuts are not going to be the same, and it's just the way it is. And I know some people think that it's like, oh, that makes it a scam and all this kind of stuff, but no, I don't see it that way at all. But let's Let's see. Thank you for confirming on my pedigree assumption. Would you buy a Bat 232 Murphy pedigree? So when you're talking about, I think Mint Hunter did a video on this because he tends to buy more in like the bronze type, that age of book, and he talked about what pedigrees add in that era. Because when I'm talking about pedigrees, I'm generally talking about golden age pedigrees. And so like those are the ones that I care about more than the silver bronze pedigrees. The silver and bronze pedigrees add less. I think he showed that on average it was like 10 to 15% more that you often saw with the silver and bronze pedigrees. But that's usually what he was. I think that's what he was seeing when he made that video a while ago. I don't remember how long ago. I just remember watching it at some point. But let's see here. Let's talk about some more books that sold on here, because there's just so much cool stuff in this auction. And if there's anything you want me to talk about specifically, let me know in the comments. If there's a book that sold that you're interested in, or a book that I scroll by, let me know, and I will stop on that one. We had this Batman 1 sold for more than I thought it would. I mean, Batman 1 has been just, I kind of make jokes about it. It's like every auction, every major auction, like whether it's Comic Link, Comic Connect, Heritage, it seems like they've got to have at least two. Like this auction had, I think, two. I think it had a 1.5, what's it called? The green label. Yeah, I think it had a married centerfold and had this 2.5 universal. And yeah, it went for 156, which if you look at some other sales, it seems low. But when you look at what they've actually been, like, that's the tricky part with Golden Age. You can't look at last sale, because last sale could be 2 years ago. And so like this one, you had in 2023, you had a 215,000. You had this 270 in 2022. This was not immune to the comic boom either. You can see it's kind of looks like it's getting back in line there. Like the 156 is generally back in line, but we had what was it? It was like a 4.0 CBCS that sold for like 180 or something not too long ago. And you had this 3.5 that went for 228. I mean, this felt like, with what I'd been seeing with how this book had been trending down in other grades, this 2.0 going for, I think this was maybe a brittle or something. I feel like there was some reason why this one maybe went low. Yes, slightly brittle on Heritage, like I always say. 2.0, 102,000, slightly brittle on Heritage. It is what it is. Like, it's what I see. But yeah, I felt like this 156 was a solid sale. It didn't feel weak to me. I just feel like these sales got too far ahead of themselves. I don't think that, owning a Batman 1 is always going to be like a pretty amazing book to own. But you can still pay too much in the moment, right? Like, that's true with anything. You can always pay too much in the moment. It's always a possibility. The Cap 3, this was a strong sale, that 156. This went for way more than I thought it would. This Strange Tales 110.96. I thought that was going to go for like, I talked about it in a video. I think I was at like 90, maybe 100, went for 150. This, it's top of census, but this book on all other grades has been like going down, and did not seem like this was going to hit that type of number. It hadn't come up for sale for a long time. You have that pent up demand. That's what can happen. And so this was a big sale for this book. Let me check in the comments, just make sure I'm not missing anything. And no, I'm not a full-time comic dealer. It's a side. I think I said that earlier in the video. It's a side thing for me. But how do I price books like Golden and Silver Age? It doesn't come up for as often. So pricing books that don't come up as often, whether that's high grade Silver Age or high grade Bronze Age or Golden Age, you often have to use some comparisons with other grades. And so, like, for example, like this Batman 1, if you have this, like a 6.0, or let's say the 7.0 that comes up for sale, and what you would do is you would look at, say, what it sold for, and let's pretend the 2023 sale isn't there. And you look at, like, what did this book sell for in 2018? And so it sold in 2018, it went for 334,000. And then we go down to another grade, like this 2.5, and we say, what did this book sell for in 2018? Looks like in 2018, this was probably about an $85,000 book. Now it's $156,000 book. So it went up maybe like, what's that, like 90%. So it's gone up 90% in those 6 years. So I would look at this 7.0 and I would say 2018, this book was 335,000. I would expect it to go for maybe around, I mean, 90% would be 650, 640. And look at what it sold for, 630. You know, I mean, you can get pretty close with those types of estimates. It's just like the books often tend to move similarly across grades. There are always going to be some little weird outliers and things, but if you check a few grades, you look at that, you can get an idea what they're going to go for. And that's how you generally can price that kind of stuff. The stuff that's more rare or just higher grades, so it doesn't sell nearly as often. Um, Question, do I let's see, it says, do I collect anything else? Um, I have a few Pokemon cards, like a few graded Pokemon cards, but my main collectible is comic books. I don't really collect much else. I think I have like 5 or 6 graded Pokemon cards. There are a few that I'm always watching that I'm kind of interested in with Pokemon cards, but I haven't been pulling the trigger because I bought those at like peak crazy, Pokemon boom, whatever you want to call it. And so I aided on a number of those. And so I feel like I'm still a little gun shy with Pokemon. Um, have I found any keys that are good long-term investments and track comparative to the S&P? I mean, I've done a number of videos in the past where I talk about how I price out comics. And basically I look at, I use, uh, I look at how what the yearly return basically for those books across like large periods of time. Because the thing with comic books that you always have to kind of remember, that's very different with, and we'll use this as an example here, this Batman one. That's very different than the stock market. Is that the stock market, you have items changing hands all the time, many times a day, like millions of times a day. And so you have this like price that's pretty set. And it can move up and down, but it doesn't have like a big bandwidth, like at any moment in time. Comic books, depending on what platform, whether it's an auction or a fixed price or private sale or whatever, you can have some really wide ranges in prices. So that's one thing you always have to think about there. It's where you buy can be a big deal. It's kind of like housing. Like your buy-in can be a big deal with comics, especially at least on the short term. On longer term, but that's why what I'm getting at here is on longer term, what you look at is you kind of look at where that general trend for the book. And I generally have seen that I think when I did like a lot of like the Silver Age, like the major Silver Age keys, for heroes, I'll say like villains do worse. It is true. Like when people say like heroes are better investments than villains, it is 100% true. Even like Doctor Doom, like Doctor Doom before the comic boom, it was like he was returning, it was like 4% a year. Whereas Spider, like AF-15, I think that one returns like 14% a year. And so, I mean, it's like there are certain books that do very, very well. Amazing Fantasy 15, Hulk 181. I think Amazing Spider-Man 129 generally does pretty good. I mean, you can go back and maybe find some of those videos. And I talk about what their percentage returns are, because the whole reason for those videos was that we'd had these big spikes from the comic boom. And so I was trying to look at what would these books be at if you took their pricing changes prior to that spike and just extended it out. And if you've checked out, say like Swaggle House Comics, like where he does his comic index, like you can see like where a lot of those books have come back in line with, or the averages have come back in line with where they had been trending previously. And so that's how I've been saying, like, or at least making my best educated guess, like when it is a reasonable time to start buying some of those books again. Because I mean, you can see, like, I mean, I love Golden Age books. That's part of the reason why I've gotten so much into Golden Age. But I've also been very hesitant about silver, bronze, everything else. Like I used to have a fair amount. I mean, I still do have a decent amount of silver and bronze, but I used to have them on like my keeper list and everything. And I sold them because I was just so afraid of what was going on with silver and bronze books. And now I've just been constantly watching and seeing like, when can I feel comfortable buying back into those books again. And if you look at something like Amazing Fantasy 15, like this one, I mean, Amazing Fantasy 15 is a perfect example of this because it corrected pretty quick back down from those peak prices. And let's look at a grade maybe that sells a little more often, like a 4 or 5. And I mean, so look at this. So it's like you look at that kind of that general trend for this, and these aren't log scales. So when over long periods of time, it can sometimes throw things off a little bit, like you would have in this when you're generally looking at like the S&P, you generally use a log scale after a while. But you can see like it's now back pretty much in line with where it had been. And it's been there now for like a year and a half that it's gotten back into that trend line. And it's just, that's why like AF15, as long as I look at it like that, I feel pretty comfortable buying AF15. But you can see like there's always going to be these ups and downs. Like somebody paid 36,000 here, and like 2 months prior, someone paid 45,000. And now that 45,000 is probably relatively safe long term. You stretch it out 5 years or 10 years, but in the short term, they overpaid. Like that's really that's all you can say is like they overpaid in the short term. Long term, they're probably okay. But that's why like books like this, where you can do those long term trends, that's like AF15 is the best example, really. But there are like a lot of the Silver Age keys. Like I said, if you go back and check out those videos, the Silver Age keys, the Bronze Age keys, they generally show anywhere from 10 to 15%, and over when you stretch it out. But the thing is, when you look at, let's go back to that 4-5, these books, what they'll often do is they'll have like 1 year where they do a big jump, or 1 period where they do a big jump, and then they stay flat for a few years, and then they do a jump, and then they stay flat for a few years. It's not like the stock market where, you know, you might have something that's like you watch it gradually trend up. It tends to be that you have these fluctuations, or they have a big jump and then they stay flat, and a jump and they stay flat. But that's why if you look at it long term, they tend to be. But again, I can't predict what things will do long term. I don't know if 20 years from now nobody cares about comics. That is also very, you know, a very real possibility that could be out there. But if you go off the last like 20, 30, 40 years of history, people do seem to like these collectibles and relate to them. And while I know some people get really hung up on the fact that there aren't as many like new comic buyers now, I don't know if that really matters. It might, but one of the big differences we have now is that you have the people that grew up watching the movies. And when they become, you know, an age where they have enough money and they just remember like, oh, I remember like growing up watching Captain America or Hulk or Iron Man or whatever else, are they going to then be like, I have money now, maybe I want to have this, you know, this collectible that's ties to those characters. And so that could also be where that comes from later on. I have no idea though. You know, it's like everybody's just their best guess out there. AG says I picked up Mask 2 and All-Star 3. I felt I went slightly high. Or what are my thoughts on it? You mean in this auction you bought the Mask 2? I did feel that Mask 2 went on the higher side. I was watching that one, but I mean, it's an awesome book. I mean, Mask Comics 1 is my favorite LB Cole cover. I think it was this one, right? This 4.5. So, I mean, like if I'm looking at it compared to other sales, I mean, that's all I can do, right? And it's like a 5.0 last year went for 17, a 4.0 went in 2022 for 12. This 1.8 went for 6,500. There was I think there was one that sold in Comic Connect. I don't remember the grade though. It was like a 3.5 or a 4. I think it went for like 14, something like that. I don't remember exactly, but I mean, it does feel high comparatively. I mean, that's all I can say. But I still think it's a cool book. And the record is in there now. And so like, if somebody else is ever wondering, like, if you're like, oh, I'm not, you know, like that's always one of those tough things. That's one of it's the blessing and the curse of things like GPA is that, if you are selling, you're trying to sell, like people see your purchase price and they try to hold that against you. But if you're, you know, but it also solidifies what you paid so that people see that. And so it kind of like defines that point in time, what that book was, you know, was worth, is what at least 2 people were willing to bid to. The All-Star 3, I don't know if I was watching that one. Let's see. I can't remember. Is that like the first Justice League? Like when they're around the table? I can't remember if that's 3 or 4. Let's see. So it was this one here. Um, Yeah. Okay. Yeah. All-Star 3. First, yeah, it's that for, or not just League, just a society where they're around the table. Um, what are my thoughts on that one? That one doesn't feel high to me. I mean, you had the last sale of a 3.0 at 18.5. You had a 5.5 at 24.4 or 24. And I mean, this 24 felt like a pretty good deal. Like, I mean, I feel like the 33 was on the high end, but 24 felt like maybe on the lower end. I think it's probably maybe more like 28. And so I'd say like at the 5.5, it's probably a $5,000 point book. And at the 3.0, I mean, it was a six. I mean, it's 6,000. Like maybe this 18 was a little high, but $6,000 a point. I mean, I would say somewhere around 5,000 a point for the 4.0. And so I feel like that's to me that was a that was a solid purchase. Like that's around where I would value that book, maybe even a little under what I would value it at. Um, I very much like those market videos. You plan on doing them again in the future? Uh, Sometimes it's like the challenge is always how much time it takes to make some of these videos. Um, some videos I can put like because you gotta remember it's like I have I mean one I do like my triathlon stuff or try to I'm trying to get back into shape for triathlon. I have like work, I have comics, and I have YouTube, and so it is a lot of time. And some videos take and I mean, and I have like family and vacations and all this kind of thing, and so it's like some some videos take significantly longer to make than others. Those market videos take me hours and hours and hours, and it doesn't necessarily translate into views. And so it's always tough to like put like when you put like 5 or 6 hours into a video and it gets the same number of views as something that I put 30 minutes into. And so that's always like that's one of those things like I'm always just measuring when I'm putting out YouTube videos because some of them, I mean, they really do like that. Those videos take a ton of prep because I've got to do all that, like the research and the pricing stuff out and all that for those videos. Then I've got to create like slides and figures and things to show with it. And man, those take a lot of time. So, well, I appreciate that you like the videos. Man, they're a lot of work. So, um, let's see. Most valuable pre-code horror series: Tales from the Crypt, Haunt of Fear, etc. So yeah, I mean, the EC is definitely the gold standard when it comes to here, let's go. Oh my gosh, this one's selling. I want to man, I'm missing out. I don't even know what that's going for. That was one of the books I was actually really looking forward to. Um, I didn't know if I was going to try to bid on it or not. It is it's my second favorite Jack Davis cover. So this was the 9.2 Gaines 18. I don't remember what I thought it was. This, I mean, that is I wasn't going to bid that. Like, this is what I'm talking about. These Gaines file copy books are going wild, like wild. This book is at, I think that's 7,500. I think 6,250 with the 20% is 7,500. We'll see if it gets another bid or not. All right. So it just closed out. Let's check that. Yeah. 7,500. Now I love this cover. I mean, it is such a great werewolf cover. My favorite werewolf cover is 46. I love that one, but this, because, and I've said it before, it's because that one looks like the werewolf from Harry Potter. And so I really like that type of werewolf, kind of like the tall, lanky werewolf. This one just has the awesome face with kind of like the breath coming out of his mouth and everything. But 9.2 Gaines file copy, 7,500. I mean, look at that. Gaines file copy 4 years ago or 3 years ago, 1,800. This sold for 4 times as much. It went for more than this 9.6. 9.6 just in March of 22 went for 5,280. That is officially the highest sale ever for this book. And I'm pretty sure there are 9.8s. Yeah, okay, yeah, there's one 9.8. You got to always remember that with these Gaines file copies, there's multiple Gaines file copies for almost every issue. And there's almost always a 9.8. Sometimes there's 9.9s. I mean, 9.9.2s in that book. find that one here. That book just went for $7,500. The new record overall for for that book. That's crazy. But that is what I've been seeing. Gaines file copies have been going nuts. And this one, no exception. I mean, it's a cool cover, but yeah, there was no way I was gonna be putting even if I thought it could bump to a 9.4, I wouldn't have paid that. I mean, someone really wanted it. I'm not, like I said, I'm not holding anything against anyone. I mean, if you want the book and you don't want to wait, like you're like, I'm not going to wait 2 years for maybe a better copy to come up. You buy it. And there were a couple people that really wanted it, and it came with, it has the little thing with it too, the certificate. And this is what I'm talking about. See, of the 11 copies of Tales from the Crypt 35 found in Gaines' collection, this is copy number 10. There are 11 Gaines file copies for this book, just this one. That's not like 11 Gaines file copies, 11 just for that book. And so, yeah, I mean, wow. And these are cool. This is I think this has a Peanuts appearance. Oh yeah. Yeah. Second comic book appearance of Peanuts. They often appear in these like they're in these United Features books. But 9.4 is insane. That's pretty cool. Then we've got this LB Cole. This is one of the, like, to me, I always like this LB Cole romance cover. It has the most Matt Baker feel of any LB Cole romance cover that I've seen. Like the way that's drawn feels like Matt Baker. It has the LB Cole styling, like the color, but the actual art itself feels like Matt Baker. So I think that's why that one is actually so popular from his issues. Oh, what did this one sell for? 4,320. Because I know this book, I feel like this one has been going all over the place. This magazine is Haunted, number 14. Pretty cool skull cover. But this magazine, number 14. I gotta grab a drink. Been talking too much. All right. So so this magazine is Haunted, number 14. 5.5 is a pretty tough grade, I think, for that book. So we had a 5.0 went for 31, 4.5, 21, 4.0, 12. So I would have probably put a 5.5 at like 34 to 35. What did it go for? 43 to 20. Yeah. I mean, and it was white pages. I mean, that all on the opposite side. I was talking about brittle and slightly brittle on Heritage. Those tend to, underperform. White pages is like, just add money on Heritage. Like it just people go crazy on Heritage for white pages. So, but yeah, no, solid sale, strong sale for that one. Yeah, I mean, same as the 7.0 that just sold in December. I think it's the same. Yeah, same as the 7.0 that sold in December. That's how strong that sale was. Just 4 months ago, you had a 7.0 copy sell for the exact same number. Let's see. Here's that 7.0. Let's compare these two. I mean, the 5.5 is bright. Like that is a bright looking book. Here, let's move these next to each other so I can kind of flip between them. Yeah, I mean, that's a really good look. I mean, you can see like there's some damage along the top edge. That's probably really what hurt it. I don't know what else is in here. Check the grader's notes. And this is so annoying. This verification thing on CGC's page now. Light spine stress lines, moderate creasing, very light fingerprints, very light wear. So just kind of like a little everything, it seems like, that one. But this is a good looking book. That really is a bright copy. So I can see why somebody wanted to pay a premium for it. All right, I can catch back up in the comments here. Yeah, I appreciate it. Yep. Remember to hit the like button. Helps out the channel, shares the video, all that kind of stuff. So I noticed generally white pages commands about 10 to 15% on silver golden age. You feel the same. I mean, sometimes it's a lot more. Sometimes it goes for less. I mean, I bought white pages under market, like on auctions, on Heritage. Like that's where I'm always like, my feeling on page quality is, I mean, I know people pay a premium for it. Like those are the things you have to understand as somebody who sells comics. And if you're buying comics, you have to understand that there is a market for a premium for those books. And so there are people that will pay that premium. So if you can get it under market, it's even better. But I also think there are very few people out there that actually, when like with knowing how much trouble a lot of people have grading, the likelihood that people can generally actually identify white pages versus off white to white, it's like that. Like very, very small. Like you've got to see a lot of books to really determine if something's gonna be white versus off white to white. I mean, even like, and I know this again, like people be like, oh, this is why it's a scam. No, it's just like it's the thing. Like a lot of times you'll send books, people will send books into CGC and they'll get white, and then maybe the next time they'll get off white to white. They'll get off white. I mean, it's just that's why, like, to me, that kind of thing is crazy to pay some of the premiums that get paid for white pages. I mean, there was a just in the Comic Connect auction a couple weeks ago, there were two Amazing Spider-Man 129 9.8s. One was off white to white, one was white. Off white to white sold for like 18,000, white sold for 28,000. I mean, that was just insane to me. And I mean, I get it. Like the white pages one had a little bit better color strike and stuff, but was it worth over 50% more? I don't think so. Somebody it was, but like that's an example of like sometimes like it's not just 10 to 15%. Sometimes people pay some pretty extreme premiums for white pages. I find that most people that collect Golden Age or retirement age, what happens in years to come, will the next generation even be interested? I mean, I'm not even close to retirement age. So I don't know. I feel like Golden Age, it's almost like it's what a lot of people just like kind of like morph into as they get older. so I mean, maybe it's just like, after time you just start to like, you're like, you want that, like try to find that rarer thing. That's one of the things that's always really appealed to me about Golden Age, why I eventually kind of like got into that. I I just it felt too easy to get the silver and bronze age books. I was like, I can buy these anytime. It was made it, I don't know, it's just like something that was extra, it made it fun to like come across these golden age books. You have to wait for them. You couldn't just go out and buy them. You had to try to find that right copy or the right price or the right types of flaws on them. And it was something that added something to me as it's like I wasn't always into golden age books. Like my keeper list used to be predominantly silver and bronze, and over time it just kind of morphed into golden age. But no, I mean, I think classic stuff will always be desirable. There's lots of golden age stuff that has like no value. I mean, don't get me wrong, like there are a lot of golden age books out there that are not worth buying. But I think if you stick to the genres and those covers and everything that are generally desired, I don't think you're gonna have too much of a problem. That felt low. I want to check that book. That one felt low. Let's check this one out. So if you're not familiar with this, so this is War Fury #1. And Don Heck, I think he just like got a little lazy one day and he then copied this cover. Or he just took this head and placed the exact same head with the bullet hole in it on, what is it? It's like Horrific 4. I'm gonna blank on the issue. Let's go check. I'll use Go Collect for this one. It's like Horrific 4 or Horrific #8, something like that. I'm much more of a Horrific 3. Yeah, so so you see, like this guy, like this face right here, that guy. He's just like, I don't have time to make another cover. I mean, like whatever the old timey version of copy and paste, like whether that's like an X-Acto knife or something, you just like carve that little guy out, just like stuck it on this cover, and he's like, done. Here we go. And this one is actually, I think, is the more expensive book now. But let's look at, I mean, War Fury 1 generally isn't cheap, but that's why I thought that maybe seemed a little bit cheap. Let's see, War Fury #1. So War Fury #1, yeah, 4.5, 1320. That went cheap. I mean, I would not be shocked if we see this book pop up for sale again very soon for whoever purchased this one. I mean, 1,320. I mean, there's a big gap here. Like maybe somebody paid a little high on this 5.0, but like 600 a point. Maybe this one should have been like 2,500. Maybe this should have been 1,600. But I think like this 4.5 should have been like 2,000, somewhere in that range. I think someone got a really good deal on this book. But I always think that one's kind of funny how he just kind of like popped that out and he's just like, yep, here we go. There's a new cover. This has got to be another Gaines. Yep. Yeah. 9-6. This is number 7 of 11 again. So that you can see they didn't used to put this here, but they have been now. So they're showing like there are 11 Gaines file copies. And this was number 7 of those 11. There's 4 in 9-6, 6 higher. I mean, let's check this one out. So then we'll go to the census on this one. Now we don't know if all 6 of those are Gaines, but like 6 9/8. I mean, that's what I'm talking about here. You know, like with ECs, you always have like you usually have a lot near the bottom, and then you have a lot at the top. And it's these Gaines file copies. I mean, it's wild how many 9-6, 9/8, and 9/9s. I mean, that what is it? Shock Suspense Stories 8. Is it 8 or 6? I don't know. Feel like I don't know why I'm getting that wrong. Let's see. I'll know real quick. It's definitely 6. Shock Suspense Story 6 has a 9/9, and I always like to point this one out because it's off white to white pages, so I think it's kind of funny. So yeah, so this 9/9 off white to white, it's a crazy looking book. I mean, when you look at this one, like this is what I'm talking about with 9/9s. Like usually 9/9s just look different. You know, they just look different than the 9/8. And this is an example of that. This book, it's just different. I mean, it's just stunning. Absolutely stunning book. Now, yeah, it's off white to white pages, so throw it in the garbage. But stunning book. So I think like whoever bought this for 15 back in 2015 was just one of the best buys ever. But yeah, crazy Wallywood cover, Gaines file copy. Yeah, just incredible books. Let me jump back to the comment section here. Did you win the Suspense 11? Congratulations. Let me check that one out. That's where let me find the number just so I can jump to it quick because it's on my list over here. 93203. 93203. 9,000. There was it's like a 7.0 on Comic Connect that went, I think it was Comic Connect that went just bonkers, like 14,000 or something. I don't remember exactly what it went for. It was a big number, but yeah, congratulations. Yeah. And this was a white pages copy. This was one of my favorite LB Cole covers for a long time. It was on my keeper list. I had like a 1/8. I had a lower grade copy. But yeah, it's a cool devil cover. I really like this cover. I think it's of the Suspense Comics run that was done by LB Cole, because Suspense 3, Suspense 3 is the number one comic in that run. But this is probably my second favorite. It's a toss up between 11 and 8, and I think I like 11 more. Why doesn't color strike and centering affect grades? It just doesn't. I mean, I know it does in cards, but in comics, it just really hasn't ever impacted the grade. You can have 9/8. Well, you can have 9. I mean, there was that. I mean, I talked about it in a recent video. Like, you can have 9/9s, and Bry's Comics showed that you can have 10/0s with miswraps. And I've always seen 9/9s with miswraps. That's why I thought it was so ridiculous that when CGC wrote their graders guide, and that's why I tell people I don't even bother. I've no use for that graders guide. I don't pay attention to that. I follow what CGC does. I don't look at what they say. I look at what they do. And if you submit enough books, if you look at enough graded books, you learn how they grade. The place I started was ETA Nick. ETA Nick was a guy that had a channel that he closed it down maybe like 2 years ago now. But he still has his channel up and you can go watch all his grading videos. And he has the most extensive grading videos anywhere. And it's how CGC grades. And so that's how I started learning. Then I started looking at the actual, books themselves in the slabs, and then getting books and sending them in for grading and all of that. And you learn how they grade, and what they say in that graders guide in a number of cases, it's not just that, is not what they actually do. And so that's why, like, I know that upsets people, but again, like, I don't really care. Like, it doesn't matter to me. I know how they grade. And so that's how I make my grade estimates. I do not care what they say in that book, because they generally, I mean, in a lot of things, they probably follow what they say in there, but there are plenty of cases where they don't. And the miswrap is one of them, because they say in that book that it's like a miswrap is allowed up to a 9.8, but there are clearly miswraps in 9.9s, and Bry's comic showed that they're also in a 10. So miswraps mean nothing. Now, color strike. Now, what that kind of stuff does impact generally is what the book sells for. It may not impact the grade, but a book with a better color strike, with a better wrap, that kind of thing, will sometimes sell for more. Not always, though. So I'm gonna give you an example, and it was because of this one that just sold in this auction, like the most charged book out there right now, a Giant Size X-Men #1, and 9.8 sold in this auction for 24,000. It's already in here, so 24,000. And I talked about this book in the video I put out like 2 days ago, because it has a damaged right edge. And I was talking about how I am not comfortable with Giant Size X-Men 1 in these slabs, because I mean, look at it. You can see the damaged edge. It's like all, you can tell it got bent in on that side. Now, maybe that can press out, maybe it can't. I don't know. But it's, to me, that is no longer a 9.8. It's probably a 9.6 or 9.4. But maybe it can get back to a 9.8. I don't know. But somebody paid 24,000. They paid the 9.8 price. I mean, that's what we talk about all the time, right? It's like everybody is like, buy the book, not the grade. But most people, even if somebody is spending $20,000, it's buying the grade, not the book. Now, when we talk about color strike, this is the one I think I showed in that video too. This is a stunning book, and it went for 22,200. This one doesn't have any issues with the edge. You can go like, this edge is perfect. Like, this one's totally fine. It didn't get, whatever happens in these cases, like, it didn't get banged up on this edge. Like, maybe a little something there, but nothing I'd be worried about with this book. But I mean, look at the color difference between these two. And I don't think that's fading. I think that this is just color strike, because this is pretty common in Giant Size X-Men 1. You have a big range in how deep that red is. And like, it went for less, which is, I mean, that's the kind of crazy thing. Like, it's not like they're different page qualities either. They're both off-white to white. You would think this one would sell for more. I believe there was a 9.8 CBCS that sold at the same time as this one for like 19. And so that could have hurt it, maybe, that you had multiple people bidding on like an almost identical book at the same time. That maybe that's what held it back. But like, you compare these two, like, this book is far superior, even though the grade is the same. Visual appeal, not even close. I mean, like, I wouldn't really want this book because of that faded red, or like the worst color strike. Like, this book, this is an exceptional one though. Like, you don't usually see it this deep a red, but this was a good copy. So yeah, I mean, that's where it's like the grade is where like 95% of the value comes from in reality. Like 90 to 95% of the value. Like, that's what people buy. But you do have things like color strike and that kind of thing that can play a big role. Sorry, let's go down the. I picked up the 5.5 Witch's Tales 20 in the Comic Connect auction. Any thoughts on that purchase? I don't remember what that one sold for. I don't remember what I mean, for Witch's Tales, the main book I'm familiar with, or that I watch, is 25. Let's see. Oh, I spelled it wrong. That is a cool cover. There were actually 2 of these in that auction. This is an example of one of the ones where I was just like, man, like, you don't see this book come up for sale very often. And then there were 2 of them. And I can't remember if they went low or what, but I was definitely watching those books. Again, I don't remember what they sold for, but I think that's a cool cover. I do. I think that's a cool one. Let's see. Good point about wondering if only retirement age folks will still collect Golden Age. Luckily, content creators like Ryan are helping keep that era alive. I mean, hey, that's the way I look at that. Is that's like, so I always have these right here next to me. These Gerber photo journals. And if you're into Golden Age, or you're looking to get into Golden Age, like, buy these books. There's 2 of them. There's this one, and then there's Try not to accidentally unplug something. Then there's this one right here. One of them is for K through Z, and one of them's for A through J. And they are just amazing reference books, like something where you can flip through them and you can figure out maybe which golden age books you're interested in. And part of the big, my understanding was one of the big reasons that they put out those books is it was similar back in that time period. It was like what, like late 70s, early 80s, where there was this decrease in demand for golden age books, and a big part of it was awareness. Just people didn't see them very often, they didn't come up very often, and they didn't know what was out there. And so those books helped increase that awareness. So I mean, awareness is important. I mean, if people aren't talking about them, then less people will be interested in them. And so I mean, they're interesting to me. I like them, so I keep talking about them. PCH is obviously unparalleled. Well, here, let me just put this back up here. Oh, that's a cool cover too. This is probably I don't know if it's the best cover in the Young Men run. It's short run, but oh, what did this one sell for? Oh man, I feel like I should have bid on this. That feels low. Let's before I jump back to that, I'll jump back to that comment. This feels low because that book looked crazy. I thought it might have a shot at a 9.8. And because it was that's part of the good part about this. It keeps me from bidding on things. I don't need to spend any more money. So oh my gosh. I think this is one of the steals of the auction. I think this is one of the steals of the auction. This is a Gaines file copy, the worst label ever made. So this is this is the CBCS label that existed for like 6 months. It's called the Rivet label. It's just the worst. Like, it is the worst label that's ever been made. Guaranteed that label alone hurt the value of this. I mean, look at the font used for this grade. Like, what are they thinking? Like, this is just terrible. Just terrible. But 4,560 for this 9.6 when the CGC in 2022 went for 5,520, and this has done nothing but go up since, like these Gaines copies. And this book is incredible. I would have made someone pay more for this. I would have been bidding if I hadn't been, like distracted. I would have been bidding on this. I mean, look at this book. I didn't see anything wrong with this copy. I would not be like, I don't know if there's maybe something there. Maybe with one spine tick. And then you've just got, like a bindery issue. Like that's allowed in 9.8s. Like, this is as solid of a 9.6 as you could get. And I would not be surprised if you could get a 9.8 out of it. I mean, look at this thing. Look at these corners. That's insane. It's not the 9.9 probably because of the bindery issue, but maybe it's a 9.9. I don't know. But like, now granted, the back cover is really tough to tell because it's white. I can't really see what kinds of flaws might be there. But man, that is one of the buys of the auction. Gosh, like, and I've been thinking of making a video on this about the CBCS. I had it saved. I have them saved over here. Like, these are the CBCS books that sold. I'm probably going to make a video talking about them, just how they performed versus CGC and all that. And this is a perfect example. Someone stole this book, and it's because it's in this CBCS case. I mean, this is a possible 9.8. That book is stunning. I mean, and for Golden Age, especially, like, I mean, look at those. Like, that's like a modern corner. Like, that's crazy. Oh gosh, somebody stole that book. Maybe somebody in the chat stole it. I don't know. Let's see. And hey, Manu, thanks for joining the chat. Says, funny how paying up to 50% more on a white page slab book that they can never verify. Yeah, I mean, that's the other part of it. I know people say it's like, if you're not flipping through it anyway, does it really matter? But I mean, then you could argue that it's like, it doesn't matter if it's missing a page or that. I mean, it's still the condition of the book. A book isn't permanently encased in a slab. You can take it out if you want. So I don't know. I think I kind of get it, but I also don't get it. They're just trying to go through here to see if I want to see if anybody bought that book, like in the chat, because I kind of have fallen behind a little bit on my comments. Um, ETA Nick, you could have a drinking game while watching his videos. Every time he says outlier, take a drink. I mean, or every time he gets mad and just yells at people or something, or like a rant. Like he was entertaining to watch. Like it's definitely true. Uh, what is color strike? Color strike is just the basically how bright that ink is that's on the book. Like if because when the books were being printed, you have the ink being laid down, and maybe if it was at the beginning of a run, it has really deep dark colors, and if it was at the end of the run before they added more ink in, it would have lighter colors. And so one really good example of that is Fiction House. So in the golden age, the publisher Fiction House is just known for having like a lot of their books had these lighter colors. And then every once in a while you come across one that just has this stunning deep colors, and those ones always sell for more. They always do very, very well because you don't see them very often. But you'll see that with, I mean, even with modern books, like you'll see different color strikes with, I mean, hey, I think one of the easiest ones to show it with is New Mutants 87. New Mutants 87, this first appearance of Cable, has huge variation in the background orange color. Sometimes it's orange, sometimes it's like a deep red. And let's see if we can find some examples. These are all so like, I mean, like you can see like those are orange. Let's see if I can find one of the deep red ones. I mean, that one's pretty red versus I mean, like look at these two. Like pretty deep red, much lighter orange. And there are more extreme examples where this gets like really, really dark red. This one's pretty deep red there. Sometimes it's lighting, but it's definitely like that book is an example of one where you can have very big differences in that color strike on the book. Another example is just Amazing Spider-Man 300, the red that's in the background. Sometimes it's like kind of like a faded out looking orangish red, and sometimes it's a really deep red for those 300s on there. So that's definitely a thing you see quite a bit. Oh man, Aliens #1 and a 9.8. That is a tough book. Very tough 9.8. Let's see there. 88 and 9.8, none higher. So no 9.9s of that one, but maybe there will be. Who knows? Maybe there will be a 9.9 of that one. Why doesn't CGC accommodate for thicker books to eliminate slabbing defects? I don't think it's so much that it's. I think it's kind of like they they would need to have a slab that's almost entirely different. So if you are familiar now with their new cases that they've come out with for pulps, the pulp cases are designed completely different from comic cases, specifically because pulps have this like overhang that on the edges. And so if they were in like a case like the slabs, you would end up banging up those edges. That's effectively what I think is probably happening with some of these square bounds. And maybe it's that Giant Size X-Men 1, like maybe some square bounds are more likely to be like cut with the cover flush to the pages, and so you don't get damage. But maybe Giant Size X-Men 1 is more likely to have an actual little overhang, and so you get these like pushed in damage, edges on it. And it's just like I doubt that they're going to make an entirely different case just for Giant Size X-Men 1. It's like I think that's probably what it is. Let's see. Oh, here we go. Yeah, and we've got Manu says, Marcus, they do have different thickness of slabs and different types of inner wells, but they've gotten it right, but they haven't gotten it right yet. Apparently people don't make enough of a fuss. Yeah, I mean, it's like when I went through the Giant Size X-Men ones, I probably had to look through 30 copies to find the 3 examples that were damaged. It's just like, but that's like 10%. It's like, it's not a small percentage, and that was in 9/8. The lower grade you get, the less it matters, because if you have like a 5.0, it's not going to do anything. It really only matters if maybe you have like a 9.4 plus. Then you're going to really, it makes a difference. But for the person that buys that book, it matters. 100% that Tales from the Crypt will be cracked and sent to CGC. I have no question. I absolutely would have. And I would not be surprised if it had, I mean, solid 9.6, possible 9.8. And maybe they'll send it in a couple times. Try to get that 9.8. So Alan says, I didn't think color rub could be considered a 9.8. These days, starting to see modern 9.8 with color rub. No, I mean, color rub is definitely allowed in 9.8s. I've seen, and so I think maybe that, and I'm trying to to approach this stuff lightly because I don't want to be like called like a CGC shill or whatever. But I'm just going to tell you like from what I've seen, and I've seen 9/8 with color rub for a long time. I am not like you can find older books that have it, all this kind of thing. Like I am not concerned with color rub in a 9/8 to a point. Like you're allowed to have like a certain amount. Like a 9/8 is not a perfect book. You can have some color rub in a 9/8, but you are not supposed to be able to have color rub in a 9/9. That's where the potential concern comes up. Now it's possible maybe what we were seeing on that 9/9 Giant Size X-Men 1 is lighting, but I feel like if it was, we would have seen a better picture of it now showing us that it was just a lighting and it wasn't on the book. Because so it makes me think that that color rub is there. But I don't know. I mean, I don't know. But it feels like that color rub is there. I've said before, I don't think that Giant Size X-Men 1 deserves to be a 9/9. I also disagree with everybody that says it's a 9/6. It is a 9/8. It is an all day 9/8. No question. But I don't think it's a 9/9 because of the specific things that have to be there for it to be a 9/9. And one of those things is it's not supposed to have handling defects. Even though Matt Nelson, recently said like a 9/9 can have a spine tick, but spine tick is a handling defect. How can their rules on their page say it can't have any handling defects. Why is a spine tick allowed? And that's why I don't know. It's just, I don't know. It's my little rant, but yeah, no, I think all day that book is a 9/8. I do not think at all it's a 9/6. Like there's no way. Like it's a solid 9/8. But it is not a 9/9 in my opinion. Let's see. I won the more fun 5445 restored, tough to price. Yeah, I mean, and that's a pretty rare book as well. So it's tough to price anyway, even if it's not restored. Let's see if I had that on my watch list and I can jump to it. I did. All right. So 93143. And I mean, I'll caveat, I am not a fan of this cover. So, I mean, I've said that before. I mean, I know a lot of people love it, but I don't like this cover. But I'll take that out of my pricing considerations for this book. I like Bernard Bailey. I like his pre-code horror stuff. I think his pre-code horror stuff is incredible. But this cover just doesn't do it for me. I know, but like some people say it's the best cover of the Golden Age, and that's where taste always got. I mean, everybody has a different opinion about what they like. Some people think the pre-code horror stuff is just disgusting and they don't even want to look at it. Whereas I really like the pre-code horror stuff. So, I mean, everybody's got a different outlook on what they like to buy. So moderate C3, color touch, pieces added, glue, tear seals, reinforced. So in theory, those things can all be removed. So that's one of the things I always think about. I look at first with a restored book is like, does it have the possibility to get back to a universal if you wanted it to? Now C3 is quite a bit. So even if it has the possibility, then you could make it just look awful. Getting rid of that restoration, maybe there's color touch all over like the cover and it would just make all these white marks. So they had to cut out all kinds of pieces. And so you got to think about that as well. But let's look at what was this? This was a 4.5. So 4.5. We had a 5.5 sell in December 2022 for 15. The 2.0 go for 9,600. 4.5 universal. I mean, I think this would go for more now. This 5.5. Especially like, I mean, a 1.0, 8,000 for a 1.0 feels very high, but however, this is the type of book where you're going to have a really high buy-in. I've talked about that. There's a few other books that are like that as well, where it's like your threshold to get into the book is very, very high. And then maybe it doesn't necessarily jump up as much right away. Another example of that is Startling 49, the Bender cover. The threshold to get into that book is extremely high. It's like $9,000 almost. But then like, as you jump up in grade, it doesn't jump in price like you think it would. There was a Crippen 8.5 that sold in this auction this week for like 24. But you couldn't get a 4.5 for less than probably 15 to 17. So it's just, there's some weird things with some of these books where it's really tough to get into them. And then they don't necessarily jump in price. So I think a universal 4.5 would probably sell today for like 17. So then the question is, what would a restored 4.5 go for? Let's see. What did, let me find this book. So it went for 10.8. I mean, that sounds about right. Um, I would have thought, like, if you look at the fact that it can get back to a universal, and you had a universal 1.0 go for 8, I feel like the bare minimum for this book is 8. And so then we go from there. Cause like, even if you got rid of all the restoration, it's probably still a 1. Maybe it's even a 1.5. And maybe even a 2. Who knows? Depends on how bad, like, what that C3 actually is. I mean, I think probably like 9 to 12. Like, if I'm trying to take out the fact that I know what it sold for. But I would say somewhere between 9 and 12 is where I value that book. And so I think that's within that range. But yeah. Let's see. Man, a lot of comments. I got to try to maybe jump ahead and see if I can catch up a little bit. Got Mark says, color touch used to be acceptable and common practice without hits on the book before CGC. Well, I don't know if it was acceptable. It was more accepted, like restoration was more accepted. But I wouldn't, but trying to hide color touch I don't think was ever acceptable. Like, that was always something, if somebody was trimming or, doing that kind of thing, like, I think it was never acceptable. You always should have been disclosing it. There's always shady people out there that are going to try to slip that kind of stuff past people. But yes, restoration was definitely at one point was more accepted. It didn't hurt the value as much as it does today. And I do think that the label plays it's crazy, but I do think that that label plays a big part in it. The fact that it's that purple label, it's like this, like, eyesore on it that people don't like. I mean, I have some purple label books, like my Tech 38 is a restored book. My Marvel Mystery 9 is a restored book. It's just like, I wish they did it would be better if they did what CBCS did. Like, that's one of those cases where CBCS got it right, where they still use the same color label and they just write restored on it. That's how they should have done it. Just the giant purple thing is just, I don't know. It's too much. So 8.0 went for 25K recently on Comic Link. Yeah. I mean, and that's why, and here we have for 33.6. That's why Comic Link sales, they only last as long as the person who saw it remembers them. They don't get pulled in anywhere. So it's like the tree in the woods. If nobody sees it, did it actually happen? That's the tough part with Comic Link sales. Let's see oh man, here we go. We got some ASM. Oh man. I don't know, Manu, are you still in here? Oh, that went low. And I don't think people knew what this book was. So, I mean, it went above what a 9.8 would. Mark Jeweller's insert, probably the best one on the planet. A 9.8 signed by Lee, Pollard, and Wolfman. I mean, I think, oh man. Yeah, I think that went low. Part of it might have been because of this whole scandal thing right now. But yes, I don't think people realized, or many realized, that this was a Mark Jeweller's. And it's my dogs. You can ignore that. But yeah, I don't think many people realize that I don't think, I mean, you had that one on eBay. I think it was an ASM 194 that went for like 25 or something, or 20. And then this one signed by Lee. I mean, yeah, I think that went really, really low, but yeah, no, I agree. I had priced this one, I think, at like 25,000. That's around where I thought it would go. And I think like, Heritage doesn't put Mark Jeweller's in this title here. Like, to me, the Mark Jeweller's is far more important than the Signature series. Like, I would have put Mark Jeweller's up here, not Signature series, if they're running out of space, because it's really tough. Like, you don't notice it because you've got all this signature information here. And then the Mark Jeweller's is just kind of this little thing on the side where normally the only thing that's there is the Mark Jeweller's. Yeah, I think that hurt this book. I think that was and I think that was a listing issue where it should have had Mark Jewelers um, prominently stated up here for that book, in my opinion. Um, do we know? Do we know what color verified SIG labels are going to be with CGC? We don't. I keep checking because they said that this was supposed to come out in April. So I keep checking their site to see if like if they've put in the ability to submit those books, and they haven't yet, or at least they hadn't as of last night when I last checked. Um, I know people think they're not going to use yellow. I think they're using yellow. I think they're going to do the same thing that CBCS does, and they're going to use yellow, and they are just going to write verified next to it instead of witnessed. That's what I would do. Why would you change the way it looks? You know, like to me, like that would just it would deter people from wanting to use the service. And the goal is to get people to send in books and get money to use the service. I think they're just going to use a standard yellow label like they do, and they're just going to say verified next to it. Um, let's see. Yeah, Bayer did very well there. MJ plus Stanley 98 is very desirable. They didn't showcase the MJ factor. Yeah, yep. I think somebody stole that book. I really do. Let's see. I can send my House of Secrets 92 signed by Wrightson and get slabbed without getting hammered on the grade, or getting a green label. I mean, that was always the downside, that you were going to get the green label, which just like the purple label, it's this like visual thing that people don't like seeing. What was the ASM 300? Let's check. So this was a, make sure I didn't lose my internet or something here. Okay, here we go. It was a 9.8 signed by T. McFarlamph. Whoa. What? What the hell is this? What is this? Why did that sell for $26,000? I don't understand this sale. I am definitely going to be cutting this for a clip in like a separate video. What is this? That's like more than a newsstand. Like a newsstand is like 10 grand right now, or 12 or something. Is this one like a Mark Jewelers or something? Like, what is going on? Okay. Somebody just like whoever's selling that book just won the lottery. Like whoever's selling that book just won the lottery. Like, and I don't think, like, I know there's going to be people that are like, oh, it's shill bidding. That's not shill bidding. There's no benefit to doing that, because there are going to be copies that are out there that are widely available for far less. Like there's no reason, there's zero benefit to shill bid that kind of thing. But I mean, look at this. Like this is a 9.8 direct. Okay. Then we'll get into the signature part, but 2,800. Did they think it was 28,000? Did somebody get GPA and think it was 28,000? Like but two people had to bid that. I mean, this is a $3,000 book right now, unsigned. All right. Then holy cow. Like that is officially, and I don't like making people feel bad about purchases, but you should probably feel bad about that purchase. Like you just lost $20,000. Like you just threw $20,000 in the garbage. So let's look at a Stanley and McFarlane signed copy in November sold for $6,900. I mean, let's find like one that's maybe just McFarlane, since that's going to be more. Yeah, right here, 4,700. Last sale, highest sale ever was 10,000. Peak crazy comic boom, 10,000. Highest sale now, 26,400. Good eye there, Manu. God, like that's wild. I don't think it like people talk about this money laundering thing. It's just like I don't think that's what this is. Like everybody loves to jump to these like ridiculous things. I know that it has happened on Heritage. I remember there was that big story about it. There's that one guy that was like buying books and laundering money. Like so I mean I think that's why people jump to that, but I don't think so. Like you would do it with something less ridiculously obvious or you're the worst criminal ever. Um oh god. 26,400. Oh my gosh. Yeah, that's the new record. Comic Boom is back. New record high for Amazing Spider-Man 300. 9.8 signed by Tom. Maybe they really wanted that label. You know, they really wanted that McFarlane custom label. And he didn't even and it's not even one that has the full Todd, you know? You got the just the T. You didn't even get the full Todd on this one. So it's not even like the full Todd signature. That's wild. That's Yep. Officially, craziest sale of the auction. Someone paid 6 times. I mean, look, I mean, the low recently has been 4,500. Yeah, 6 times what this book is worth. Sometimes I don't get it. Like, oh, these were really cool. What did these sell for? So these are these bound volumes. They have like bound volumes of like everything. Like there was a 1 through what was it? 1 through 16 that sold in the main part of the auction for like 13,000 or something. Felt like a deal to me. They're trimmed and everything, but these are really cool. Like if you want something really cool, I mean, like these are really cool. And I mean, they've got like key issues and everything. I mean, there's 16 issues in here for 2,300. I mean, you paid like, even though they're trimmed, I get it, but you paid like $150 per issue. That feels like a total steal. What this one do? Then the next one, 2,400. And yeah, it's got some tanning and stuff, but it's got ASM. I mean, this has ASM 50 in it. There's some big issues in here. That I think those were good. Those were really good pickups. I'm surprised how low those went. Because I've been seeing bound volume, like Golden Age bound volumes going for crazy numbers lately. And those feel exceptionally low. But yeah, wow. That's mind-blowing. Oh, I never understand why this book sells for as much as it does. It's a kind of like a cool cover. I get it. It's like it's that famous like Batman carrying Robin cover, but this book this actually feels low for what I'm used to with it. Batman 156. Let's check it out. Man, I got to go back to this the comments real quick though. I'm just curious about this. One's sold on eBay, 4X signed on March 4th for 25,000. Then we have Ryan. We're going to need an explanation for this one, please. I do not have it. You will have to find the person that bought the book, and they're probably regretting it right now. I don't like maybe they pre-bid. I wish I would have been watching it live. Like maybe they pre-bid, but you'd still need 2 people to have done it. Like that's like maybe I was thinking maybe they pre-bid like 2,600 or something, but you would have needed at least 2 people to make that massive mistake. Yeah, crazy. Let's see. Now, what was I looking up here? Trying to remember what I was looking up. Oh yeah, that Batman. Oh, what did it go for? So Batman 156, 9.2 went for 2,280. That feels low. I feel like I've seen some really huge numbers for this book. Yeah, Nicolas Cage bought it. It's a possibility. Maybe he just doesn't care. I have to think there's a Todd McFarlane signed copy that's on the like eBay right now. We're gonna go look. We're gonna look on eBay. So Amazing Spider-Man number 300 CGC 9.8. All right. Let's see if there's let's look at what is the most expensive one on eBay right now. Maybe they saw this. Maybe they saw this listing and they're like, I'm getting a deal. Stanley and Todd McFarlane, 9.8, 49,000. Here's a 5X sign one for 26, 25 for a newsstand, 20,000 for like, maybe they saw this and thought that was the right price. Like this is the same like like just the T signed. Like I have to think that's maybe what happened. Like they just like that's not what that book sells for. Like that is a crazy asking price. That is not at all like you can. This is why I tell people all the time, eBay listings or eBay sold prices are not what the are not what you should be using to price out books, especially if you are spending $100+ on a book. You should be paying for pricing service. Like that person just like if that's why they bought it, you know, if that's why they bought that book, that person could have paid for multiple lifetimes of GPA with what they overpaid for that book. I mean, I have to think somebody maybe thought they're like, oh, I checked eBay, and then like, oh my gosh, that's just insanity. Okay, so 9.2 went for 31.20. This one went for 22.80. So it went for quite a bit less than what that last sale was, which to me, I always felt like that was high. Like these prices, like 38.40 for a 9.0, but then you have an 8.0 go for 4.80. These prices didn't make any sense to me. So that seems like that's when I talk about that, I talk about confirmation sales. And so when I say that, I mean, like when you have some really big sale, like I want to see confirmation sales for that book, like sales that tell me that more people are willing to pay that price. It wasn't just some freak outlier. And this tells me that like some of these were big outliers. Um, yeah, they increased no, they only increased it for the Todd McFarlane sign one, because if you look on like GPA or Go Collect, it's not going to have any impact on anything except that one line. Like the only line that will be impact, like when this gets pulled in to GPA, for example, the only line that will be impacted is it always takes so long for this to load because there's so many sales of ASM 300. The only line that's going to be impacted is that one line down here that says signed by Todd McFarlane. It will get pulled into this individual line. It'll go, yeah, the average sale price is going to jump for this one. That's for sure. But yeah, I mean, look at these, like all those prices, like that's what I'm saying. Like those eBay listed prices they're just ridiculous. I mean, yeah, you had this one and so there was a comment up here. Where is that? There's the one that said, I think somebody said it one sold for 25,000. Four signed. Let's see. The only one I see on was I don't see a March for 24,000. I see this one four signed in August for 17. And so yeah, I don't see that $24,000 sale. It's possible. I mean, let's check. If it was in March, we should be able to see it. And let's go here. So this was our best offer. So I doubt this sold for 24,000. Especially since we don't see it on GPA. I really doubt this sold for 24 or 25,000. So I would have to look into what this one actually sold for, or if it even did, or if we're just going to see it relisted again. I don't know. It's hard to say. But if I don't have my I can't show that right now. But you can, if you have a store, you can go and look at what this book actually sold for, and then we could get an actual idea what it really sold for. But the fact that it isn't sold on March 7th, actually, let's check down here. Let's see if it's in their relists or non-sale errors. Here it is, non-sale. See, so it didn't sell. So that's why, like, GPA has some other things that maybe you don't know about. Like they have these little things here. So they catch it when things get relisted, or if the person decided not to buy it, or like it seems like something was sketchy or fake about the sale, they get pulled in down here. And that's that sale, 25,000 March 2024. So it was not a real sale. Maybe that fooled someone. I don't know. So yeah. Crazy. All right. So let's trying to catch up back on the So question here, question, does a wrong back cover result in an automatic 0.5? Um, well, I don't know if you can get a green label with a wrong back cover that would be a higher grade. I'm not certain about that, but it is considered a, I mean, for a universal grade, it's considered an incomplete book. It would be an automatic 0.5. It would be, you're missing the back cover, which is a 0.5. The only thing that might be different, I'm not certain if you would get a green label where they'd give you anything for that, but probably automatic 0.5. Um, yeah, no, that ASM, that sale is crazy. Those are the ones where I mean, I would like to, I mean, and sometimes I feel kind of bad because sometimes people are like, oh, I bought that book. And then you're like, but, like in this case, man, I don't understand. I don't understand that one. Um, Oh yeah, and here's the like I showed that it didn't actually sell. It got pulled into GPA. So it says I saw that Forex signed eBay sold, but could have sold much lower. Yeah, it looks like it didn't actually sell at all. All right. Let's I mean, we've been talking for a while. I'll go over a few more things because I feel like there are a few more kind of cool things that sold. We had this, I mean, we had this TMNT 198 went for 126,000. This book has been holding up a lot stronger than I thought it would. Now, yes, it is down from its peak. Its peak was like 250, like right around 250,000. But I keep thinking this book is going to drop below 100, and it hasn't been. It keeps having sales like up around like 120, 130, 126, like this one. And so it's been holding up pretty well. It could be that it's people that own it. They're just like, I got to buy this one too to like keep the price up. I don't know. But yeah, that TMNT one first print that keeps going strong. I know, like, I think some people thought this was a weak sale. I thought it was a strong sale. So this is the Silver Surfer 1 signed by Stan Lee, 9.8. And I'll tell you why I think that this is a strong sale. So Silver Surfer 1, there was one that sold in like January for like 132. To me, that was someone just paid too much for it. Now, granted, they had the money and they don't care and they wanted the book. So it was this Boston pedigree sold for 132,000. Now, the reason I feel that this is high is that there are 10 copies of this book. It's not like there's a single highest or anything. So I think I even said when this one sold at 132 that I was like, another copies, they're going to come out with that. And the reason I feel that way is when you look at the other grades, even high grades, like look at a 9.2, like 9.2 Comic Boom jumped to 11,500. Prior to the Comic Boom, this book, like 2018 was like 2,500, 2019, started to climb. That's like the beginning of the Comic Boom, like maybe 3,000. And then it jumped to 11,000, and then it's correcting back down. And now it's, down at like $5,000. Still maybe a little high, but it's down quite a bit. And so when I look at the 9.8 and I look at what it sold for back in 2008, it was like a $27,000 book. I do that with the other grades, like you look at the 9.2 in 2008, what was this book? It was $1,000 book. It's now maybe like in pre-Comic Boom, it was like a $2,800 book. So I'm like, maybe this book sells for like 3 times more. Like, I think what I valued this book at was like around like 75 to 80,000, and it sold for 132. I feel like it's still kind of in that Comic Boom pricing. And so that's why I think that this one, to me, it's got the Stanley signature. So that's something that definitely adds something. Maybe that bumps it to like 85, 70 to 85, somewhere in that range, but it went for 108. So to me, that was a very strong sale. This was a really cool item. This is just this Amazing Spider-Man 18 story page that had like all the villains at that time pretty much, and the heroes. It had the Fantastic Four, the Avengers, Green Goblin, all that kind of stuff. I thought that was really cool. Went for 114,000, which feels like a good price. Let's see. There's some other cool things. Here's that Detective Comics 31, the 90,000. There was I mean, this is cool. A Journey in Mystery 85, 94 white pages, 84. This was a new record. 84,000 was a new record in grade for that book. I mean, that's the type of stuff we haven't seen very much of in the, currently. And so I think I had this one going for like 68 or 70, went for 84. So solid sale for that. We are starting to finally see Fantastic Four 48 correct a little bit. This was pretty strong sale, but we're seeing the prices come down on that one. I felt like the Hulk 181 went high. I feel like this should be around 60 right now. Went for 72. It sold for 72 back in January too. But it's holding up more than I think it would. There was a Comic Link sale for 61. So that's why I thought maybe it would go a little lower, but it did not. Let's see. Shouldn't Stanley have signed all over Silver Surfer's face? Yes. If going by what he normally does, he should have signed in the worst possible place, directly on one of the main characters' faces. This I felt went very low. This was probably the biggest surprise, one of the biggest surprises to me on the downside. I thought this, especially with what we've seen with Detective Comics, like otherwise, Detective Comics books have been doing extremely well. This is the single highest graded copy of the first appearance of Two-Face, a 9.2. And it went for less than it did back in like 2018. I thought it was going to go for somewhere like 150. I mean, I don't know. I feel like that was an incredibly low price for that book, especially when a lot of the other books around it, this was in the opener, went really well, really strong. Here's that Tech 29. That was, I felt like it was a really solid sale. I think I had it around like 55 or 60, went for 66. Let's see. Oh, here we go. I'm definitely going to talk about this one. House of Secrets 92, 9.8, CBCS. I'm going to talk about this in a separate video, but a little bit here. I mean, this is one of those examples of the risks of CBCS, right? If this was CGC and it was a 9.8, this is like an $80,000 book. CBCS, it gets 58.8. I had thought as a CBCS it was going to go for 55, so it beat my CBCS estimate, but still well below the CGC price that I think it would get. And this is a solid book. I think it has a pretty good shot at cross grading to a 9.8. It's like there's maybe a couple little things. But overall, this feels like there was one thing on the right edge, I thought. Let me see if I can't remember. I thought there was something on the right edge. Maybe it was this, like this little, whatever this little thing is. It was pretty small. But overall, like this felt like, and maybe there's something there. Like you see that? There could be something there kind of hiding in those little speckles on the cover. So it's a risk. That's why I estimated that this would sell between the 9.6 and the 9.8. And because the 9.6 is like 35,000 or something, or 30,000, and a 9.8 is like 80. And so somebody's taking a gamble if they're going to, I mean, they'll get this in hand. What I'm guessing is going to happen is they'll get this book in hand. They'll take a close look at it, because you'll maybe be able to see a little more clearly if, like, is that a crease, or is that, something that's just like on the case, or, like whatever, like a light whatever. But if that's a crease, there's a 0% chance they're cracking this book out and sending it to CGC. If it isn't a crease, then maybe they do. But that's what they're going to look at. And if they think that it has a chance, maybe they'll gamble and send it to CGC. If not, they'll probably just put it right back up for sale, and they'll just try to get their money out, and they'll move on to the next thing. But that's my guess. And oh yeah, here's that other Batman number one. I feel like this is a pretty good buy, because like the only reason that this is a green label, I think it was a married centerfold. Let's see. Yeah, centerfold married. And so it's a 0.5. Like without that, I mean, it's a universal 0.5, just is missing the centerfold. And so now it's complete, so it's a complete copy. And so it's a pretty solid looking copy. I mean, for a 1.5, I mean, it doesn't have any, like a little bit missing on the top here. It doesn't really, not missing much, like pretty good looking book. And so if we look at a 0.5 in November 2022 went for 42,000. I mean, a 1.8, 138, this 2.0 was that slightly brittle thing. 2.5 went for 150. I mean, I think that's probably like a 70 to $80,000 book, and went for 54. I think this was a good purchase. And it's just what I would probably do if I was the person that bought this book. I would send it to like Sanderson Studios. I would have him do a small amount of leaf casting on the book. Because let's see what the notes say. This so annoying. So it says detached centerfold, detached cover. All right. I'd have him do a small amount of leaf casting on the centerfold and on the cover. And then I would have so that he could reattach them. And I don't know if I would have him leaf cast up if you could prevent leaf cast here, if you could maybe, I don't know if you can just do on the spine or something, but then I would just have it reattached. Maybe you get if you get that cover reattached, the repair from the leaf casting, you might get a 2.5 or a 3. And now you get a conserved label. So you get the blue label with the green bar or the gray bar, which is much more desirable, like visually for people. That's probably what I would do. I would take that book, send it to Sanderson Studios, have him leaf cast the centerfold and the cover, reattach, resubmit to CGC, pay a huge amount of money to have it regraded because it's 4% of value. So you're probably going to spend like $3,000 just in regrading. And that's what I would do. That would be my approach if I was the person that bought that book. So yeah, so there are this question here. I've seen videos where the staples are carefully replaced. Are they dinged on CGC? There are people who try to replace staples without getting caught. And I am not a fan of that. I think it is deceptive, and you shouldn't be doing that. But there are people that do it. If they think you replace the staples, you will get a conserved label, as long as they are of the time period. They treat it as restoration. But there are plenty of people out there that, I don't know if it's plenty, but there are people out there that try to do that and get it past CGC, which I don't like. I don't like, there's some of those things. It's like, I don't really blame CGC for that kind of thing. I blame the person who's doing it. Like their goal is to deceive. And, it's like CGC can do as good as they can to try to catch some of that stuff. But some people are very good at deception, and that's what they're doing. And I think that it is, like, for example, like me, I sent in my Superman #2. I had it leaf casted so I could get the cover reattached, and I could get the conserved label because it was a married cover. I had put a note on it that it was a married cover, but I don't know if it got lost along the way or if they missed it or what. But CGC sent the book back to me. They did not mark it as a married cover. I returned it to them and said, as a mechanical, it was a free return, whatever. And I was like, this is a married cover. Please correct the label. But I know there are people out there that wouldn't do that. That they'd just be like, oh, I got one past CGC. Now I can sell it for more as a complete original book. And that's not how I approach things. I'm not out here to screw people. And some people are just out here to screw people and try to make as much money as they can. So, but yeah, that is an example of that. All right. Yeah. Oh, this was a big sale. It just like, this is an example of where it's like, we talk about all this 9.9 stuff and people are just like, we don't care. We're still buying them. We're still paying huge money. This was a Nick Fury Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. #1, 9.9, went for $52,800. That was a massive sale for that book. I think I had it going for like 22. So Nick Fury #1. But yeah, it's a single highest graded copy. It's a Silver Age. It's very, very unlikely you're going to get another 9.9 on that one. That's the facts on that. But look at this, like 9.8, 3,399, 9.9, 52,000. Went for like 15 times what the 9.8 sells for. That's why not. And look, in 2015 sold for 15. And then, so like the thing is, like, you see 2015 sold for 15. This 9.8 in 2015 sold for 1,800. It's like less than double. Like it's like 70% more. So that's kind of why I was thinking like this one less than double. Like double would be 30. So I figured, yeah, I had it at 22, I think, but like maybe up to 25. Went for 52.8. You know, I mean, that's like hate on CGC all you want. Like they know people, they'll buy these 99s. So it's just like it doesn't matter. People still buy them. Um, but yeah, it's I don't know, it's ridiculous. But I thought this was really cool too. I don't know if anybody's a fan of Far Side. There's this original Far Side went for 51,000. The boneless chicken ranch. Oh, all right, and maybe I'll end on this one. Unless anybody has anything specific. Oh no, I got to talk about two more books. I'll talk about two more books. This one first. Until That Amazing Spider-Man 300. This was the wildest sale of this auction. This 9.2 Haunted Thrills number 6. I think there's 2 in a 9.2. Yeah, 2 in a 9.2, none higher. It's the highest graded copy. I love this cover. But 50,400 is bananas. Like 50,400 is bananas for this book, especially. I mean, I have a hard time even looking at this screen right now. And it's not because of the price. It's because of the cover. I don't know if you can notice that, like, it's maybe a little zoomed out for you, but the print is off on it. It's like it messes with your eyes. The ink wasn't put on in alignment. Or it was like, it's almost like it was either put down twice or it wasn't put on in alignment. Like I'll show you. I'll show you another copy. What is it? Haunted Thrill. Was it Haunted Thrills number 6? Let's see. Yeah. Haunted Thrills number 6. Here, I'm going to close some of these out. I don't want to close that. We'll keep that open. Close that. All right. So Haunted Thrills number 6. So there's a 9.0, I think, that sold. Yeah, this was part of that, the Black Cat collection, I think. So here's a 9.0. This is what this cover is supposed to look like. You can see this one has a little bit there, but like, you know, although everything is kind of like aligned pretty well. This one, everything is shifted like over here on the left side. Like, look at that. Like everything like is shifted and it's got this almost like this, like, yeah, it's off register. Correct. Yeah. It's bad registration. And it really, like, I have a hard time even looking at it. Like it's almost like it's not quite an instant headache, but it's kind of like it almost instantly crosses my eyes. Like that's what it feels like. It just is messing with my vision every time I look at it. And it's sold for like this insanely huge number. I mean, $50,000 for this book. I mean, looks like the other copy, the other 9.2 is a River City pedigree. Let's see if there's a picture of that one. We could use that one for an example. Yeah. Heritage. Oh man, that one is killer. Look at those. That is a deep color. That is perfect. Like that's a perfect copy. I mean, granted, it's a 9.2. It's not perfect. Like there's little things, but like, I mean, just, yeah, this 9.2 is superior to this 9.2. And not just because of the being off register, but it being like just the color strike and everything. But oh man, yeah, it just messes with my vision. But I mean, when you look at the price, I mean, it's just like two people really wanted it. Two people really wanted that one. And yeah, I don't know. I don't think that that's going to necessarily bump prices of lower grades. I think that I think it's an outlier, but we'll see. I'm sure people will ask higher prices now for that book. It is a cool book. Like it is, of this run, it's probably my favorite cover of the run. I think it's just such a cool cover. But yeah, wild on that one. All right. The other one I wanted to talk about, was this one, because this is one of the most insane covers you'll ever see. This is Amazing Man number 22. It's this like Nazi gorilla getting punched in the crotch. I mean, it's just like, it is such a wild cover. Like you've got a couple Nazi gorillas here. You've got, you know, the Amazing Man. I'm assuming that's who he is, like punching him in the crotch. And this book, when I talked about this one earlier, in a different video. And I think I said in that video, I was like, it's going to go for tens of thousands of dollars. That's like all I said about it. Cause I said, I was like, you may not recognize this book. Cause I think at that point it was at like 4,000. And I was like, you may not recognize this book, but it is going to sell for tens of thousands of dollars. 43,000 crushed what I thought this would even go for. That, I mean, it's considered basically like, I think probably like the top Centaur book. If you're not familiar with Centaur publications, there's like 8 people that collect Centaur, and it's like the most obscure publisher, but they pay a ton of money for Centaur, and this is like the king of the Centaur books. And the book that's looking like the best buy of all time now is, I think, is it a Larson pedigree? I think it's a Larson. Yeah, the 9-0 Larson that someone paid $5,750 for back in 2003. And so, and I mean, it's a stunner. It is a stunner. Let's find that book here. It's just for comparison. I mean, look at this thing. Like, it's just incredible. And it has the Larson name on it, which is cool. Somebody hadn't erased it or tried to erase it yet. I mean, old label, maybe it's better. Maybe it's better than a 9-0. I mean, just amazing book. But just like 20 years ago, they paid $5,750. 2.0 now goes for 43,000. I mean, this book is even looking like a great pickup now. I mean, it's one of those books that's tough because I kind of joke about, there being 8 people that collect them, but it is a very small set of people that collect Centaur. I mean, it is like, it's a very unique grouping of people that collect Centaur, but like the 7.5 for 69,000 now. I mean, it's one of those questions like, was that a great buy, or is just the buy-in now for this book extremely high? I don't know. But yeah, that was a 43,200 was a huge, huge sale for this. And yeah, it's a good looking book. It looks like there's a bunch of tape maybe on the spine. Yeah. I wouldn't be surprised if the spine is like mostly split. We can check, see if there's graders notes. So multiple extra staple, not manufacturing, multiple piece out of cover, multiple tear back cover, tape spine, 2/3 spine, split bottom spine. So, I mean, that's why, like, that's how you get these books that are low grade that look really nice. It's almost always spine splits. And this one, it says 2/3 of the spine is split. So 2.0 seems about right for that book, but yeah, it is a good looking 2.0. I mean, that's what you want to look for. And it's one of those things where it's like, how long do you want to wait for it? I mean, you had this one, unless you have $70,000, like maybe that one was priced out for you. All the other sales were 5 years ago, 6 years ago, 7 years ago, 20 years ago. And so, those people fought for it. It's just a battle for that, that Nazi gorilla cover. Let's see. One thing people seem to forgot about sold prices 20 years ago is that it was in 20 years ago, US dollar prices. I mean, yeah, there's inflation and all of that with these too, but yeah, hopefully, this is fun. They're getting into the moderns now, some more modern stuff. So if maybe, I don't know, depending on what you're interested in, there's a 9.6 cap 100 coming up. There's all kinds of cool stuff coming up with this auction still. I think there are about 400 listings today. So it's going to be going for probably at least another hour or so, something like that. Maybe even a little bit longer. So yeah, I mean, if you're looking for books, they're still, they're going to be selling for a little while longer. Hopefully, you enjoyed this video and learned some cool stuff, saw some cool books. I mean, yeah, officially the most insane sale that I saw in this entire auction was that Amazing Spider-Man 300. I don't know. I cannot explain that one at all. But thanks everybody for joining the chat. Thanks everybody for watching, hanging out with me here for a couple hours, and I will see you on the next one.